All right, we're on. And we're on. Okay, how's it going, guys? Awesome Mail here, bigrehat.com. This one letter makes $9,000, makes me $9,000 a month. This is a class Anna did, a copywriting class for real estate investors. So if you're a real estate investor, you want to get into real estate, you want to understand more about copywriting, which a lot of you have had questions about. And this class is going to be a long, epic class. You guys know how we do it. We get really deep into it, so you're going to understand the deep mechanics of how to write copy and how to write a good letter that pays you for the rest of your life. One letter can make you $9,000, $10,000 a month consistently, again and again for years to come. So one letter can make you $9,000 a month consistently for years to come, and you can do quite a bit with this class. It's pretty. I'm amazed how many people don't understand copywriting. For those of you that got introduced to copywriting through us, through Anna, through our classes, this is going to really open up your eyes, and it's going to give you even more. We asked what were the top questions you guys had. I'm going to answer them all. This class is going to take forever, but it's going to be just based on stuff that you guys had asked. So let's get started. You can click on the link below in the description or in the email that you got, and you can follow along on this page. I'm also going to go over a lot of stuff that's not on the page, so you want to listen and watch this and also go through the page. So let's get into it. How one letter makes me over $9,000 a month. This is Anna. One letter makes her over $9,000 a month, and I don't even have to mail it. Copywriting for real estate investors. This is partly done by me and her. This is brilliant stuff for reals, yes. You should also go to our other epic posts on copywriting. Copywriting is really important. We're going to define it in a second if you don't know what it is, but you should really, this is one of those high income skills, one of those mobility assets. This is one of those things where if you learn this, it's something that you can just do this and nothing else and build company after company that makes you 20, 30, 40, 50 grand a month. And you get residuals, royalties. It's kind of built into this industry. They're used to paying royalties. So you should understand the basics of how to use and create copy. You can build a full side business around this one idea. So get good. You want to know about this. Today's going to be brilliant. Holy moly, you guys. Today's going to be brilliant. A few titles for this class. How this one letter makes me $9,000 a month. I don't even have to mail it. How any real estate investor, this is what we're going to learn. It's like when we're coming up with different headlines. By the way, this is copywriting, coming up with headlines. How any real estate investor can use this one motivated seller source that everybody has heard of in an unheard of way to make over $2,000 a month or make over $2,000 a week with a single letter. And I'll even give you the letter for free. By the way, I'm going to go over the letter in a second, and you are going to get it for free to download. A masterclass on copywriting for real estate investors, how a single letter can make you $9,000 a month, and how and why you need to get better with words, a crash course on first sentences. This was one of the biggest questions people ask, and writers in general, how do I get started? How can I borrow? Or how can I tell great stories, which is really what this is all about. All art, all marketers, everyone in business, basically all we're doing are telling stories. So today we're going to talk about how to do that better. So think about these things here. The Shawshank Redemption is considered one of the best movies ever made, yet it only made $50 million when released, but it's made over twice that, over $100 million, actually over $150, I think. Since then, because of the usage rights on cable and TV. So it didn't actually make that much money when it came out. Even some minor actors are still getting checks for $500 to $1,000 a month from the Shawshank Redemption. Their work, their minor roles in the Shawshank Redemption. Think about that for a second. Next, the Beatles haven't released an album since 1970, but the Michael Jackson estate, they owned the rights to the catalog, or at least half of it. They were making about $30 million a year on it. They were paid over $750 million for their rights, to buy their rights back by, I think it was Sony that bought them. But if you think about that, it's pretty amazing. This business, the Beatles catalog, it has been shut down for over 50 years, and yet it still makes over 60,000 pounds, British, over 60,000 pounds, let's just call it dollars, $60,000 a day, and it was shut down over 50 years ago. Think about the lesson there. Michael Jordan played in the NBA for 15 years and made a total of $90 million in his career while playing basketball. Today, his royalties from the Jumpman logo, when he dunked from the free throw line, make him over $100 million a year for doing nothing. Now think about that. He played for 15 years, made $90 million. Now he makes more than that every year just from the licensing the Jumpman logo. So the lesson here is clear. Build something that keeps paying you pretty much forever. You can be like Mike or Michael Jackson, but all that stuff is heavily dependent on skill. It's unreliable. There's another way to do it, and that's what today's class is all about. A lot of people understand real estate. Buy real estate, own a rental or something like that, and it pays you residually every month, right? The same thing can be done with creating compliance assets, specifically letters. You can have it like, a letter can be like a rental, only there's no cost to it, right? So you can go out and you can produce these campaigns, put these letters together, and they can pay you forever. It's really a really cool process. If you get better at copywriting, creating campaigns that increase transactions and the value of a business, you can get paid royalties just like the examples above, and you can use a single letter to make $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 a month and more for 10, 15 years and even longer. We have students, people on our team that are doing this, and I'll show you how today. The key to doing this is to get better at copywriting. This is what it all comes down to. You got to get better at this one skill. and also the process of emotional assignment so that your compliance gaining is predictable and scalable. Once you have something that converts, a letter that converts, it's very scalable as long as you use an audience that's a moving. If you say, for example, if you're a restaurant and you want to get people who subscribe to the Wall Street Journal, or people who subscribe to Investors Business Daily or something like that, and they also make $100,000 a year, that's largely going to be the same group. But you could say people that are single and subscribe to one of those magazines. And once you know that demographic is also there's in this market or in that zip code or whatever you're targeting, there's 50,000 people a year in that demographic that are moving into that area. That means once you can convert and you know that you have an offer that converts to that group, as long as that's a moving parade, you can continue to just keep reaping the same rewards again and again. It's a really, really cool, really easy way to grow any business. $1 million idea model. Take a top salesperson's presentation, transcribe it, then send it in mail. So this is something we've been doing for years. And now some of the special needs kids, Anna's talked about this, have been doing this. You'll basically take any presentation. Let's take a look at this over here. So what we have, remember this, the 5 crowds principle: stranger, not stranger, lead, client, fan base. Every business has these 5 crowds. They have a stranger, they have people who are strangers, and then there's people who are not strangers. This over here, turning someone from a stranger to not a stranger, is the most expensive thing a business is going to do. Then they're a potential lead when they're not a stranger. Then they become a lead, an actual lead they might want to do business with. Then they become a client, a transaction has been conducted here. And then they're a fan base or they're a fanatic. This is what most people try to move someone from stranger to client, and this is just a bridge too far. You want to have the 3 main lessons here. Number 1, you raise clients like a parent does children, a farmer does with crops, or a botanist does with plants. Number 2, each level of maturity, a stranger, not a stranger, lead, client, fan base, needs a predictable, choreographed, and sequential process to ensure growth. And 3, the most expensive thing you'll ever do is turn strangers into not strangers. This is the most expensive thing to do. And I say that because just about every business, no matter how many times we teach this, they try to take people from strangers to clients. And if that doesn't happen, if that transition, which think of this, they're going through 4 of the 5 crowds. It's a very long journey, right? It's not likely to happen. Most people are not gonna become clients, go from strangers to clients. But what they do is they drop them. They don't keep in touch with them. They don't try to build their fan base in any way. And what this creates is an enormous opportunity for us, because most people are focused from stranger to client, and that's it. And the most expensive thing to do is this gap here, from stranger to not stranger, for just about every business. Now, what we just talked about taking the best sales presentation, transcribing it, that means someone went from a stranger to not a stranger, and then they went to a lead. So they went from a stranger to a lead, this individual. They just didn't become a client. And often what will happen is that business will drop those people. And it's amazing how many of these companies that we're working with, like dermatology groups and others, aren't even what Anna was talking about in the video accompanying this. That's just copywriting. And that's copywriting in the sense where you don't even need to come up with the actual copy. So all they're doing is talking to the top salesperson at the company, the top salesperson at the organization, taking their presentation, transcribing it, and then selling it, renting it back to that very same company. And then once you've done this a few times, the process goes to the 5 crowds principle, you have an entire business. Now you can move that back to that business and you get paid on royalties. Then you can get paid for delivering it back to that company, but also renting it out, licensing it to other companies. So this is how they're actually, not only are they buying some of these dermatology and surgery groups, but they're also getting multiple groups at one time. So that one company now has ownership in a few different companies. So I just want to clarify how this works. Let's say we work with a dermatologist, for example, and we have a presentation that we know how their salesman works, not only with their clients, but also with other referring physicians. And we know that when they're going to people, we're only talking to people that were leads and then they didn't become clients, people that went through the presentation. Financial planners also the same thing. Most of their people don't become, any business, they fail when they try their pitch. They have more people who opt out than become clients. And just about every business will drop. They'll stop right there. We take that same presentation, put it into a package, and we mail it back to their people. At first, we do it as an experiment to see how much it converts. And once we do this 3 or 4 or 5 times, we're able to take the best pieces and Frankenstein, the best elements of each package, and we're able to then create our own piece, which we don't owe anybody royalties on. You get what I'm saying? So this is a pretty cool principle. We're starting out with this saying that you don't have to come up with anything. You can just take current presentations and then just transcribe them and put them into a document with pictures and charts the same way they would. It's the same thing with realtors. It's a very, very cool process. This is a class she did. She goes more into this. You should check it out. It's really cool. If I said that. Basically, this is badass stuff. So first we're going to go over the actual letter, because there's a letter. This letter is that was something totally unrelated to this. Then we'll go over the copy in general and how it relates to everything. Then I'll do something people have asked me for a long time. I'll break down how to use famous sentences and borrow them to make residual money with great letters and openings. Look, there's more modest ways for me to say this, but brilliant copywriters have called me a brilliant copywriter. And one of the secrets, I'm going to give you the biggest secret I know to creating great stories, telling great stories that people want to listen to, they want to go through, and how to, the emotional hook, how to have people just, salivating and, have them putty in your hands. And it's not that difficult to do when you know the formula. Yes, I'll be going over how to tell great stories and one secret compliance and one secret, and the one secret to compliance and answering what is almost always the number one toughest question that new old copywriters have. And yes, that one massive secret to compliance always, I don't know what the hell that says. Fine. Okay, fine. I'll tell you the secret right now. Your message must in some way control the emotion. That's a big thing. You got to have emotion. It's all about how you make people feel. Everyone's a snowflake. You got to keep that in mind. And when you're done communicating with someone, you've got to change how they feel. Once you can do that, you can easily change what they do. Yes, it's about our feelings. The most powerful people in the world get and stay powered by controlling emotions. Specifically, since you're going to be doing this without a gun, you aren't going to be using a gun or force. Hopefully, you'll have to get really good with words. It's the most important thing you'll do is learn how to use words, not just with others, but also with yourself. The older I get, the more I realize this. You get better at your dialogue, and you don't need to do anything else. Talking people into doing stuff is the only skill in business that you ever need to learn, because it's the only skill that if you get good enough at that, you don't need to learn to do anything else. I've said that like 100 times. It should be tattooed in your brain. Today I'll go over how to make sure you never get writer's block. This is the biggest question that people have, that you always know where to start and exactly how to use the famous time-tested emotion-triggering words and stories to get people to do shit. First, let's go over the letter. Here's a quick intro from Anna. Oh, we've got the Big Rhea cartoon. I love Michael Jackson. He was the best. Yeah, but he was charged with some serious stuff. Yeah, but he just beat it and got off. Got it off? He just beat it and got off. That's, I think, what it's supposed to say. All right. Motivated sellers. This is her going over the letter. I don't think she went over the actual letter, but she's using how to use it. Motivated sellers to make $9,000 a month. Please watch the class. This is the class that you want to watch. 5 easy ways to make money with copy. She was just going over a small piece of this. Improve a current piece. Someone has an ad or a headline, improve it. Improve a past piece that's not being used. A lot of times people stop using the piece because they didn't target it well. You might not even need to change the ad, but just target the ad better in a better place, or the letter. Use the same piece better, like with a better targeted list, like I just said. Get a piece from another source and bring it over. This is beautiful. Anytime, I'm going to say this like 50 times when it comes to copywriting, but if I was starting over from zero, this is one of the easiest things to do. Go in your real estate market, find someone who's running ads regularly for a while. One way to find ads that have been running forever is go to a librarian, go to a library, pull up some publication and pull one up, from 5 months ago, or 5 years ago, and see who's been running ads, every year, every month for 5 years. That's a winning ad. That's an ad that's working, and a librarian can help you do that. You can also ask the newspaper, what are some of the longest running ads that you have in this section. Once you have an ad that's converting, or a piece of copy, anything, whether it's a letter, a voicemail, a script they're using over the phone, you want to take that, talk to the person who has it, and talk to them about renting it out to other people in non-competing areas that do the same thing, and you can get royalties on that, and you can split the money you make with them. It's one of the easiest ways to make money. We've had kids that are going out and doing this and making good income, 5, 10, 15 grand a month. And I'm talking about kids that aren't even done with high school yet. Start from zero. A lot of this stuff now is specifically more with kids and like our special needs group, because a lot of those people have no other way of making money, and now that they first have one, they're very grateful for it. And just in general, they're much better at life because they're so grateful for every little thing that they have. Start from zero. Do not ever do this when starting out. Story behind the letter. I asked one of my agents, okay, so this is how she used this letter. This is really cool. This is in the video. You can watch her video, but I'm going over it anyway, just so in case you didn't see it, or just it's a good refresher. She asked one of her agents for a letter that wasn't working. So, you're going after expired listings or expired. This is the source, by the way, expired listings, which is, everyone's heard of that. This is a different way of doing it. So the guy gave her an expired listing letter. She worked on it by meeting with sellers and getting feedback. So she met with them, talked to them on the phone, said, hey, can I email this? Can you tell me why you think it's not working? And then she improved it and tweaked it until it started converting. How hard is that, right? You're having the conversations anyway. It's really easy. So she'd meet with the seller or email them, hey, I just got 42 buyers over the house on Elm Street. I'm looking for sellers who need to sell so I can test the marketing method out. Sometimes I send this letter to people who are really need help, but they don't reply. Okay, so this is what you would say to the seller. You meet with the seller saying, hey, I got 42 buyers that came over to this house that was your neighbors, and I'm sending this letter out, but people, I know it can really help people, but they're not replying. So do you mind taking a look at it and tell me why you think people aren't replying? What a great opening, right? In general, Mr. Seller, how can I get through to sellers in this neighborhood when they think that they've already heard it all before? How do you suggest I let them know I can help them when I know I can bring a crowd full of rabid buyers to their house? What do you recommend I do? So she got some good ideas, but she would actually convert the sellers on the spot. This is how you know you're good. You're asking people for advice, and you're being genuinely sincere. How do you recommend I do this? And the people who are giving you feedback are also becoming clients. It's really a great process. So you can go door to door. You can go knocking on expired listings and find business this way just by asking them for their opinion. And we're also talking about how we can leave a note on the letter too and say, hey, do you mind telling them this story? Do you mind telling me what I can do to improve this? You can see the full letter below. You could steal it. Sure, you could steal it. Guys, give us a testimonial. You owe us a testimonial. Remember, you don't need any money. My realtors are paying me about half their commission, or sometimes 30 to 40% on top of the deals I do with the sellers. And with lease options, I try to make 5 to 10 grand up front. So that's how you make that money, that 9 grand a month. In real estate, it's not that hard. Not many transactions to get to 9 grand a month. So even if I meet with 20 sellers a month or just 5 a week, I can make sure to hit that 10 to 15 grand a month. But I'm going to stick with 9 grand a month because that's the worst month so far. 9 grand a month using the letter and improving it with the feedback you get. And while you're getting feedback, you're also getting listings. All right, here are these guys again. Hopefully they spelled it right. A shipment of Viagra was stolen last night. Really, how do you know? Was it on the news? The cops are looking for a group of hardened criminals. All right, what does Viagra have to do with the? All right, I guess that's just so you know. Okay, the letter. Let's go over the letter. Speaking of Viagra. All right, I don't know why did we get a Viagra letter? Okay, here's the actual letter, you guys. Okay, so let's look at the letter. Here's the letter. This is a 10-page letter, 5 pages front and back. Okay, did you see the block? I'm going to go through this line by line. Did you see the block party down this? So this is one of her first letters, and the original letter you guys saw in the video she did. Here's the improved letter. Did you see the block party down the street? It was my last open house. This is the top of the headline. Then the headline, 137 years ago, an Italian economist stumbled on a secret. I've been messing with this letter right before I did this video, so hopefully this is exactly how they get it, I think. The link you're going to click on below is the exact letter. I've been just going through this. I think there's 3 periods here. We often use ellipses in our writing. 137 years ago, an Italian economist stumbled upon a secret. Did I change that? Stumbled upon. What did it say upon? Oh, no, I think it didn't. That's why it was down like that, right? Okay. Stumbled on a secret that would change the world forever. It has shaped economics, mathematics, and governments worldwide, and it is also the big secret to selling your house for top dollar in the next 7 days flat. That's a good question. That's a good headline. And also, one thing you'd always do with copy is just add a question mark. So if I take this out and I just add a question mark, man, I'm screwing this thing up. She's gonna be pissed. You can just add. And it is the also. You can tell that my fingerprints on this, and it is also the big secret to selling your house for top dollar in the next 7 days flat. See the question mark? It always works. You can always just if you're wondering about how to change a headline, just change a question mark and see what happens. Please read my personal letter to you below because time is short. So if you want to sell your house yesterday, then I wrote this letter just for you, dear Fred. I've spent a lot of time, money, research. And by the way, this is also one quick way of getting the sub-headline is using the because. Please read my personal letter to you below because, and then somebody time is short. And if you want to sell your house yesterday, then I wrote this letter just for you. So you can include that between the headline and the actual copy. I've spent a lot of money, time, research, and getting this to you and my costs. Actually, what is copy? Did we cover that? Way out of line here. She covered this in her class here. Okay, so what is copy? A piece of copy can be an ad, letter, email, voicemail script, dialogue, sales script, thank you letters, referral letters, text, receipts, anything written, read, or spoken. That's your copy. So anything that's what copywriting falls under, all that stuff. So like when you get junk mail, that's typically what most copywriters are. That's what they do if they're considered professional copywriters. They write junk mail, basically. But we take it to another level. It's not just junk mail. It's any type of compliance. Anytime you're trying to get people to do stuff. That is what what you wrote down and what you said. So getting better at those words fills it in. So this is all copy. This is all in a letter. Okay. I've spent a lot of money, time, research, and getting this letter to you. And to add to my cost, I've attached a fresh, crisp $1 bill to the front of this letter. Yes, it is real, and yes, you can keep it. Why did I attach a real dollar bill to this letter? You'll recognize this from the copywriter. I learned from the greatest copywriter to ever live is what he was called. And one of the things he used to do, he invented this kind of putting a letter on there. 2 reasons. First, I wanted to get your attention. And secondly, by the way, when she was doing this with sellers, she didn't actually have to use the dollar bill with the letter, right? So, because, I'm just telling you, when you're asking them, what's your feedback? You don't actually have to include that. Attention. Secondly, because first they wanted to get your attention. Secondly, because if you want to list your house, if you listed your house with a realtor and it didn't sell, then this letter will be the most important letter that you read this year. This is a good thing of targeting your demographic. You can always say, if you blank, but blank. If you tried to blank a goal that they have, but you blank, you failed because you reached some pain. If you tried to lose weight before, but every time you end up fatter than you did before. If you tried to cure your back pain before, but you ended up in the hospital, whatever. If you tried to benefit, but you pain, then this letter will be the most important letter that you read this year. In fact, I guarantee it. Yes, that's right. This letter may actually lead to me giving you even more money. First, because it would give them the dollar. First, here's a story that you should think about. Recently, 2 families decided to move. One beautiful sunny weekend, 2 homes went up for sale in our neighborhood. They were quite similar in nearly all ways, but both homes had been well cared for and taken care of. Both homes were inviting and spacious. Both homes had had a manicured yard, fluffy trees, and a comfy couch porch to relax on with a tall glass of lemonade while watching the kids play in the front yard. Emotional words here. But there was one difference, a very big difference. One sold in just a few short weeks for a great price, while the other one never sold. What was the difference? This is a good question. I'll pick 2 people, opposite outcomes. What was the difference? It's how I start a lot of my stuff. Why are real estate investors getting into business? 90 of them fail. 10 of them, 5 of them will be okay. 3 of them are doing better than okay, and 1 of them's killing it. And then 1 of them disappeared because my math was off. What was the difference? Have you ever wondered, as I have, what makes a kind of difference in people's lives? What makes this kind of difference in people's lives? Why is it that some homes get seen by dozens of excited buyers and get tons of praises, compliments, and offers, while others just sit there unnoticed like the shy boy with acne at a school dance? This is great. Similes, metaphors, shy boy with acne at a dance. Could be a shy girl at a dance. You can use different things. It immediately puts that image, shy boy with acne at a school dance. And as a result, someone turns their dreams into reality while the others stay stuck in a nightmare. It's easy to blame the market, the price, the economy, the picky buyers, the time of year. Now, this is what we call confess and attack. So confess. Instead of saying you shouldn't blame, just say, you know what, it's easy to blame other people. I've done that too. I used to have the same situation. I blamed the realtors. I blamed, the market was too competitive. I blamed the economy, whatever. If you want to get rid of excuses, one way to do it is to voice those excuses as if they're your own. It's easy to blame the market, the price, the economy, the picky buyers, the time of year, or some other lame excuse, as many realtors, brokers, and other real estate people do, and will try their level best to the point of gaslighting. Gaslighting is always that's a good image too, to make you believe. But there is more to it. You and I know for a fact that, now this is a great assumption, you and I know for a fact that everyone's full of it. You and I know for a fact that these are all excuses, because in that very same market there will be others, not many, very few in fact, but they are there, who have no problem selling houses like hotcakes and for the full asking price. So what's their secret? In the 1890s, an Italian economist made a discovery that would impact society, financial institutions, banking, mathematics, and all forms of economic governance for the next 130 plus years. The letter could have started with this, as far as I'm concerned, actually. This is a really good opening. Anytime you're talking about something with a date and you're using vague, like Italian economist, and he had some big break, this could have been actually there was a headline, but I mean this could have been the whole story. What did he do? He made a simple observation. He noticed that about 80%, did I screw that up, the spacing? He noticed that about 80% of the land in Italy was owned by about 20% of the people. Then he noticed that this ratio is represented in many other places as well. A storekeeper will see 80% of his profits come from only 20% of his clients. You will wear 20% of your clothes 80% of the time. 80% of a book's content is summarized in 20% of the pages, etc. This economist's name was Vilfredo Pareto, and this ratio is known as the Pareto principle, or the 80-20 rule. Ask anybody in real estate and they'll tell you that it's more like the 95-5 rule. Now notice we've changed some of these headlines here by using bold so that we can attract the eye as we have the skim test. As you skim it, your eye gets attracted to these things. Over here on the left, and then over here in the center as well. So don't just use the center headlines. You can use the ones on the left as well. A big majority of the result come from a big majority of the results come from a small minority of the cause. So at my brokerage, for example, and that's one way that you're telling them you're a realtor, and every other real estate broker in our area, about 95% of the sales commissions come from about 5% of the realtors. So the other 95% of the realtors are scrambling around, meanwhile promising you the moon, and scrounging to produce just 5% of the results. Why would any seller list their house with one of them, the mediocre 95%, instead of one of the 5% who really deliver results? This letter is not going to make great friends sometimes in the real estate industry, but I mean, it works. Sad truth, they just don't know any better. This is stuff that everyone wants to know. They want insider information, right? So a seller now realizes, you know what, I was suckered. They realize I understand the problem now. You want to let the seller know, not that you were suckered, but you want them to know that there was a problem that you did not see. It was information you didn't have. You were just ignorant about that. Now, this is where I start doing cartwheels and jumping jacks and trying to convince you. Whenever someone feels a pitch coming on or they feel like their heels digging in, immediately you want to acknowledge that with something like this. And jumping jacks to try to convince you that you're so lucky because I just happen to be in that 5%. And if you'll just list your house with me and sign here, everything will be just honky-dory, right? No. In fact, I'm booked solid right now, and to be considered as a client or added to my wait list, folks have had to jump through a few hoops and go through a qualification process. Don't say that unless it's true. In this case, it was true. More on how to qualify as a client below at the end of my letter. But for now, I've got great news. Wouldn't you rather I show you my results? Now, this is where we're getting to the hook, right? Because what we're doing, whenever we say, just sign right here, everything will be fine. That's what the target is thinking. Always voice objections that a target has, but do it in a more aggressive voice than they have it in their head. So if they're reading this thinking, yeah, I get it, he's got all the answers. You say, yeah, as you say, leaning back, crossing your arms. I use that image a lot. He's got all the answers. He just wants me to sign here. Say what they're thinking. Always voice an objection. And then move on to what the real close is. Well, how about I show you my results? Which no agent, no broker, no one is saying that, right? How about I show you my results, right? Instead of telling you how many buyers I can get to your house, why don't you come to one of my listings and see how many buyers I get there, right? So this is really powerful. I could tell you how great and brilliant me and my team are, but unless it results in my seller's houses moving like crack rocks in the ghetto, then again, more imagery, good, moving like, similes, metaphors, use that stuff all the time, then what good is it to you? And by the way, the broker want to take this out. Oh, we don't want to talk about crack rocks with our sellers, and our people are sophisticated. Yeah, all right. So I've decided I've included a few pictures for you. I want you to give them to your spouse or a friend and ask them to guess what they are looking at. Look at these pictures at houses. I don't know if I've got them right now. A house party, an underground rave, a political rally. They'll have more guesses like that. And then when you tell them the truth and that those images are from one of my open houses, give them a moment to pick their jaw up off the floor. You may have to help them. This is really fucking good, man. I invite you to come to my next open house this weekend, since you're doing an open house in the neighborhood. This is how we go. We do one crazy open house. Even if you don't have a listing, just pick a house and say, you know what, this listing isn't even my house, but I would know that sellers in this neighborhood really need help. So I'm going to pick a random house. I'm going to show them how a real open house is done. By the way, the realtor might not, love you after this, but you could tell them what you're doing. They'll be fine if they want to make money and they're ambitious. Just do crazy with our open houses like we've talked about, using signs. Get a bunch of buyers there and watch. You get 4 or 5, 15 sellers showing up, and you'll pick up a listing, 2, 3, 4, 5 listings. This is one of the things that Anna's doing. We didn't cover this right now, but with the same exact approach, getting 3 to 5 listings a month, getting paid on that. This is another way to make it an extra 5 or 10 grand a month. Just doing open houses and getting this letter out to sellers around that area, saying, you know what, come check this out. This weekend I'm going to be going nuts over here in one of your friends, your neighbor's house, and just watch how many listings you get as a result of that. My open houses are an event. My broker used to tell me that if I was hiring, my broker used to ask me if I was hiring exotic dancers or something, because he couldn't figure out how so many people were so excited to show up to an ordinary open house for a home that had been on the market for months with no activity. Will I post your house on Zillow? Will I use Google's latest gobbledoohickey? What about a virtual walkthrough? Surely that'll get your highest asking price. No, don't call me Shirley. Points if you get the airplane reference. LOL. This stuff, having like cute stuff like this throughout the letter, is great, especially in this case because it's Airplane. So if you haven't seen Airplane, go watch it. It's one of the best lines ever is when she's on the line and she's like, sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I've used this line so many times, and everyone, it kills. Like, if you go through a humor class, every time I say this, it kills. The woman is like, she's like, ladies and gentlemen, sorry about the turbulence. The pilot was feeling sick, but everything's fine now. No need to panic. Also, please raise your hand if you know how to fly an airplane. It's great. It's great. Airplane's great. And when people, if they don't know about Airplane, they'll go watch it. And they'll come back like, I watched Airplane. It was hilarious. They don't make movies like that anymore. None of that stuff really matters to you, does it? And with the Hot Shots with Charlie Sheen was close, but I mean, that's like, they don't do that stuff anymore. It's all like Avengers 37. All that you really care about is that you have a group of rabid buyers coming to your house and elbowing each other out to be the first to make an offer. Now, a group of buyers elbowing each other out, image words, always use verbs as much as possible. You want buyers salivating, another verb, over your house like renegade, bloodthirsty mutant cyborgs that need to prey on human flesh. Brilliant. Brilliant line. I'll read that again. You want buyers, this is like the whole point of the letter, right? You're talking to a seller. You want buyers salivating over your house like renegade, bloodthirsty mutant cyborgs that need to prey on human flesh. That exotic dancers thing, the crack rocks thing, and this part, the broker wanted to take out. Don't ever do that. Yes, to be honest, you want bloodthirsty. Yes, be honest. You want bloodthirsty buyers. Be unapologetic. I am. And if you want to become a client of mine, then you should be too. Let's be real. When you take me up on this, my invitation, come to one of my open houses. What do you really want to see? You want to feel like you're in an underwater protective cage surrounded by feeding sharks, right? Again, great imagery, beautiful. I can do exactly that for you, just as I have with my other clients. Obviously, this advanced approach goes way beyond the usual real estate services normally gotten from most commission-hungry agents. It requires plenty of good old-fashioned hard work, not very popular these days. I think this is apart from the original letter, combined with the latest technology and advanced marketing, because that stuff you never want to say. Latest technology and advanced marketing. Don't say that. Say something specific. Something with teeth. Every sentence got to have teeth, right? Like renegade, bloodthirsty mutant cyborgs that need to prey on human flesh. Brilliant. Right, that's how the buyers are. You want to feel like you're in one of those underground protective cages surrounded by feeding sharks when you come to one of my open houses. That's how you want to feel, right? When I do an open house, if you had an open house, if you came to an open house that's being done on your house, that's how you want to feel. You see, Fred, this is much more than a standard marketing plan every other agent flaunts around. It's a powerful system that generates a steady flow of highly qualified buyers, but without those annoying tire kickers, bargain hunters, and nitpicking hagglers. The more buyers that come to see 1428 Elm Street. By the way, this is one of the little things we put in, one of the nods. I always use addresses from Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street. This is Nancy's address on Nightmare on Elm Street. The better chances we have to sell it for a great price, logically. The more qualified, excited, and ready to go buyers, the better. Here's just one of my examples of recent powerful method. This is Crystal Lake, Friday the 13th. But this is another. You want to put a real testimonial here. I'm sure, and if you worked with Anna, if you're one of the bird dogs, you can actually use hers as well. I'm pretty sure I've stumbled over, for lack of a better word, the next big thing. In fact, I believe it's a twist of marketing that positions completely change and people will be selling real estate. This paragraph should be fixed, but I think it's from the original. Plus, I've got a team of money-hungry lawyers sharpening their... See, there you go. This is us. Plus, I've also got a team of money-hungry lawyers sharpening their forks, just waiting for anybody in the real estate market to even try to do this to my system without my express written permission. That's how you write that. Forget that one above it. That we have a position that's different. No, this is what you want. I've got a team of money-hungry lawyers sharpening their forks. You guys getting this imagery right? All right, me and my team invented this process, so I really am the only game in town. That's true. Big claims, I know, and that's why I've put together an offer you can't refuse. Here's the deal. This approach doesn't work for every house and every situation. Obviously, I only choose to work with clients who I know I'll have a long-term relationship with for the next 20 plus years. These are good lines. This is my clients are my family, and I'm picky about who I allow inside. Are you a good fit? Maybe. I'd like to chat with you personally for a few minutes to find out. And to make it clear, there's no cost and absolutely no obligation on your part or mine. I don't know about that. No cost, no obligation. The more you sound like a commercial, the worse. So, this is something that, but again, it's working. So I'm certain you only want to work with a real estate agent you like, respect, and trust. Yeah, but you should be, a better way to put that is I want to work with someone that I like, respect, and trust. That's why I only select, clients I know I can help. So before we shake hands and agree to take you on as a client, I must know for sure that I can help you improve your life. That's good. And that my team loves you. When my team loves on you, we are putting our energy into the right relationship. That's great. Makes sense, right? Yeah. That first sentence is the opposite of the rest of the paragraph. I'm certain you only want to work with a real estate agent you like, respect, and trust. It should be I'm only wanting to work with, because the rest of the paragraph is good. So I think she left that. I'm certain that first sentence is from the original version. So give me a call. Come out and see my system. We're at work. And one of two things will happen. Scenario one, you'll fall in love with me, and after pleading and begging, you finally get me to agree to take you on as a client and work my magic for you. In that instant, as we stand, although didn't you say earlier that the client, there's a waiting list? Okay, we'll get to that later. As we stand in front of each other and shake hands, you and I will be making a relationship that will last for the rest of our lives. You'll say, wow, this is great, and I love you. Please pick me. Okay, so then you're going to agree to maybe work with them. Once I say I do, it's like a marriage-like commitment that me and my team are making to you. This is great. This is why I'm picky with who I work with, because once I say I do, it's a marriage-like commitment that me and my team are making to you. We shake hands and I'll go to work. Obviously, you and I will be in frequent contact. We'll speak at least once a week, so you'll always know what's happening. Scenario number two, you'll say, you know what? This isn't as cool as I thought and hoped it would be. We shake hands, no hard feelings. You still walk away with plenty of useful information regardless. Plus, I'll buy you free dinner free dinner for two at Elmo Steakhouse. Oh, heck, I'll throw in the free dinner when you fall in love with me. This is a good one. Even if you fall in love with me. Always joke about people falling in love with you. Take the emotion you want people to have towards you and just expand it. I want you to think I'm the single most brilliant human being on the face of the earth, right? Like, exaggerate it. Think Ali. when you watch anything of Ali, the reason he got away with that stuff is because it was so exaggerated, so beyond. Then you watch someone like Mayweather, and it doesn't work as much because he's like, he's actually being like aggressive with it. He'd be like, I'm the baddest man on the planet, but he's like, I'm the baddest motherfucker. I'm gonna knock you. Like, it doesn't, it's different. Don't be so aggressive with it. Be fun with it. Be playful, and you can always get away with stuff like that. This is a great line. Heck, I'll even throw in the free dinner for you, even if parentheses when you fall in love with me. That's good. Obviously, this is not for everyone. In the interest of time, and not wasting your time or mine, I don't like that your time or mine stuff, but okay. Let me tell you right up front that in the interest of saving time, see, you could just, well, okay, fine, it's working. So if you don't want to live somewhere else, this isn't for you. This is only for sellers that want to get rid of their house and move somewhere else. Okay, so then you may wonder what that is. That's sometimes people are behind on payments or something, but they have to need to want to be out of their house. If you have a moral or ethical problem with me and my team, strong arming buyers and other realtors, and to getting you the highest price, this is brilliant. Highest price possible for your house, that's a problem. I will be that kid at school who hangs other kids upside down by their ankles and shakes out every bit of loose change the buyer's got. If you have a problem for that, this isn't for you. Brilliant. I will have a swap of buyers come to your house. The cars will be lining up around the block, and your nosy neighbors will come over to see just what the heck is happening. You will have more buyers gawking over your house in one day than you or any other seller in your neighborhood has had in years combined. Yes, people will be talking. If you have a problem with being talk of the town, then this isn't for you. Great. My broker keeps telling me that I have to stop being so aggressive with my listings and the marketing I do, and that it's okay if a listing goes expired, but because it quote happens in this business. No, it doesn't. Not to me and not to my clients. I take it as a personal insult if any listing of mine gets even close to expiring, so I never let it happen. No matter what it takes, this aggressive approach has made other realtors look bad, and thus some of them have badmouthed me. I reply by pointing to my clients' results. I thought he was going to say pointing to my crotch, because we say that a lot, give him a crotch point. That'd be pretty funny. When realtors badmouth me, I reply by pointing to my crotch. What's wrong with me? Don't do that, but point to my clients' results. I'm okay with rubbing realtors and the inside are good old boys in this real estate market the wrong way. And as long as I'm doing good by my clients, If you have a problem with that, then this isn't for you. If you prefer agents with a traditional sales marketing approach, this isn't for you. Again, that could be written better, but the top 1 to 5% don't get there by following the other 95%. LOL. But you need to know what we do is ... different, and so are the results. Here's who this is for. This system I walk you through is designed for you if you want to sell your property quickly. If you absolutely need the highest price possible in the shortest time. That first one, if you want to sell your property quickly, that could be a lot better. Like you want to sell it as fast as crack in the ghetto or whatever. You expect more than a traditional lengthy approach used by most agents. I think these are bullets that was in the first letter. And you expect your agent to actually deliver significant results and be a family friend for generations to come. That's good. The last part, be a family friend for generations to come. If you meet these simple criteria, I guarantee you'll enjoy our discussion regardless of whether we decide to work together or not. That's how confident I am. Here's what to do next. Give me a call. I'm confident you're going to love this. I look forward to hearing from you. Indiana. Plus, give me a call, my direct line. We'll talk with me personally. My number's, she puts her number, 317-969-5619. I'm looking forward to our chat. And in case you're just skimming this letter, I know it's pretty long. Here's the deal. So this is when you remember the PS is you want to repeat what you have, and you want to do it in 3 basic points. I have what is the next big thing for home sellers in area, and is how I can get my houses flooded with buyers like zombies to a rotting corpse. Brilliant, zombies to a rotting corpse. I love it. I invite you to come see for yourself how insane these events are. By the way, when I say I love it, this never has to do with my opinion at all. Take this letter, have any brilliant copywriter who knows how to convert results, and they're going to hit the same parts I did. They're going to notice everything I said. It's like zombies to a rotting corpse. Imagery, right? That's power. That's how you start getting emotion, right? And people remember this letter. The guy's, he put this image in my mind. Think of how many images we put in the person's mind. The shy kid with acne, the dance, stuff like that. It's great. All right. How insane these events are, and how well my house is in listing sell. I know it may sound cheesy, but on top of my goal to make my top goal is to make lifelong friends. They are my real estate clients as an excuse to do that. Oh God, that's great. So although my real estate strategy could be perfect for your property at 1428 Elm Street, Nancy, I'm not entirely sure because I don't know enough about your situation and your plans yet. So give me a call. You can speak with me personally, and I can tell you in less than 5 minutes if your home, your situation are a good fit for me and my system. I'd like to chat with you for a few minutes to show you what it's all about. Give me a request, a no-cost, no-obligation meeting. Oh, we got to take that out. Okay, I got to stop messing with the letter because now it's okay. But this no-cost, no-obligation, don't say that. Because this is like, the Viagra commercials. Maybe that's where the Viagra thing came from. Okay. What's this? That was the end of the letter. Oh, okay. So there's testimonials on one page. This was blank, but you can use actual testimonials if you're going to the workshop or if you're part of the Indiana Rhea Bird Dogs. Now here's what she says, or the note that's left for sellers. So again, we took this letter, improved it. Here's how she got people to read it and give her feedback, and a lot of the people that read it became clients. Can you do me a favor, pretty please? Hi, I'm obsessed with helping homeowners in this area sell their home for top dollar nearly overnight. If I see another seller in our neighborhood who lists their house with a realtor only to see their high hopes crushed because it never sells, or it sells way underpriced, I'm going to scream. So I'm trying to help sellers in our neighborhood avoid their home from becoming another untouchable and dread expired listing that doesn't sell, or even worse, a home that does sell but for a crummy price. So I wrote this letter to help folks. Can you check it out and let me know what you think? Do you think it would help you or your neighbors? Is there a better way to get the word out? Thanks so much. This is good. And then testimonials. So there's testimonials, and then I think this is where the pictures go. And there's this letter. This letter goes on the very front of that. That is a letter. You can get the whole letter below for free. Why? Because I'm so amazing and so nice to you guys. Just too nice to you guys, right? Too nice to you guys. Okay, so we're back. We're back on the page where we have the... let me adjust this microphone for a second. Okay, so we're back on the page. That was a $9,000 a month letter. You can get it, but download it here. More than anything else, the most important skill that a real estate investor, business owner, entrepreneur has is their dialogue. Think of copywriting as dialogue in print. The better you learn the skill, the further that you will go. When I learned how valuable this was, I paid, I did whatever it took. This is me. To write good copy. Once you have the skill, you can almost literally write your own check, much the way John Lennon famously said, let's write a swimming pool. In fact, Paul McCartney, this is a quote, people think this is a quote from Paul McCartney. Somebody said to me, but the Beatles were anti-materialistic. That's a huge myth. John and I literally used to sit down and say, now let's write a swimming pool. We said it out of innocence, out of normal fucking working class glee that we were able to write a swimming pool. For the first time in our lives, we could actually do something and earn money. That's the experience you will have when you get good at this. You'll be able to sit down, put these together, and they produce for you. I paid over $30,000 to learn from the best copywriter alive. I wrote out ads. He's kind of a weird, like he didn't want anyone to know that he was available for that cheap, as he put it, so I never told anyone. I wrote out ads and entire letters by hand. I didn't type it. He made me write them out by hand. I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't paid so much. But it's one of the most important things because now when I write letters, I can actually repeat letters that converted. To this day, I can recite entire letters from memory. It has totally eliminated writer's block, and I can get in the mode with anything. Immediately I can sit down and pretty much write a letter for anything. That if you buy a list from the SRDS, we can send to it, and it will. There's three things that happen from a letter. Number one, you lose money. Number two, you break even or you make money. If you break even, you're a genius. If you make money, you're just an epic genius, and you do that with anything. The first campaign I had, I wanted to make sure I got it was cheese buyers, and I actually did produce a profit on it. The first campaign I ever wrote. But that's a test of a real copywriter. That's what he would always say. Go get a random list of like cheese buyers, send something to that list, and have it produce even a penny. And you're a genius, you're epic, and you're going to be able to do that again and again. And once you understand the triggers, how to write these words, how they come together, you'll be able to do that. I created a series of algorithms for this. If you're a real estate investor who wants benefit, who wants to make more money without using your money or credit, then this will be the most important letter you read all year, right? I talked about that earlier. If you're a target, whatever your target group is, if you're a golfer who wants to be able to, hit the ball longer, harder, straighter without, any back pain, then this letter is the most important letter you read. So just fill those things in: target, benefit, pain. If nothing else, it forces you to have target, benefit, pain in all the things that you say and do. Most realtors, most people in business don't have this. They don't know who their target is. They don't have a specific benefit that they get, and they don't know what pain they're trying to avoid. Just as one sentence will change their entire outlook. To start brilliantly is the key. You got to start well. It hooks people, and they comply simply without choice. So I'll go over a killer way to open and tell great stories and lead to compliance. When I got trained, I was made to write out by hand entire letters and stuff, right? So it was wired into my mind. Also, the greatest copywriter ever told me a story about somebody he trained to write a letter for boner pills, and then he came back with a standard rock hard all night type of letter. All right, this is one of the most important lessons you're ever going to learn. When the guy that I had trained under, he wrote the most effective, the longest running of boner pills, basically like Viagra type of pills. That's why we used the Viagra earlier. Oh, I get it. The shipment of Viagra was stolen because the cops are looking for a group of hardened criminals. That's where the Viagra came from. Okay. So what happened here? Okay, so he was writing this letter. He had this guy. He had the student he was working with, and he had him write this letter. He said, "Why don't you write this letter for pills?" And he came back and he said the same thing everyone says. Is that just be rock hard, like a porn star for hours. But what happened is that he made the student call people up, actually pick up the phone and call and talk to buyers. And what he found out, and this is something that is true about the entire industry, and it's going to change the way you look at it, that what happened, this is the secret to selling everything. It's all about the core emotion. In this case, the number one people buying these pills, they were older men in their 60s and 70s, but it wasn't about, their goal was that they weren't attractive. Their wives were also in their 60s and 70s. They looked much different, and they're getting their erections that they felt it wasn't happening, and they felt guilty. That was their emotion, guilt. They felt guilty that they weren't there for their wives. That was the number one emotion that he found by calling people. Now, my mentor already knew that because he had gone through that process. This is such an important thing because every time I see these ads online or whatever, it's always, or like when you get spam email, they haven't done this research. Because what I just told you is the number one driving force behind all, or at least the biggest group of people that buy these male enhancement pills, these erection pills like Viagra pills, is people who feel guilty. They feel guilty. Doesn't that change how you look at the entire industry, right? So what would happen is that if that's the emotion, if that's what you have guilt, and you want to be able to perform for you, and have her not feel like she's unattractive, right? It's not about pounding her, because think about what good does the average approach make? And all these other guys would dig in. So he was writing much better letters now because he knew what their emotion was. But these other guys, they would dig in. They'd say stuff like pleasure her and make her moan for hours. Imagine if you're the buyer, you have guilt, and you're hearing, pleasure her and make her moan for hours. And then it just gets worse. As their response rates plummets, they'd say stuff like, fuck her brains out. And there was one that had a guy that's like, when I was done, she was practically illiterate. And it was a guy like bragging about that. Imagine if you're an older guy and you have guilt and you see that. Is that hitting your emotion? No, it's not. And it got to the point of crazy. Pound her. I remember this. This one said, pound her pussy till she's in a coma. This is what they're saying, to the guy who feels guilt, right? And this is why it wasn't matching. Why did his letter match? Because he knew what the emotion was. It was guilt. And that's why his letter worked again and again for years, and it produced royalties for him. And he was able to get, once he understood that one emotion. But this is probably the most misunderstood thing, right? You probably look at it differently now, right? When you think of someone who's buying a bunch of pills, you think that guy's maybe like a pervert or who knows what kind of weirdo he is. No, it's a guy who doesn't want his wife to feel unattractive, right? How romantic is that? It's beautiful. So like you can take the same thing, like I get like, there's an emotion, I feel differently about it, right? And don't you now? Like when you see someone who's buying, if you saw someone's credit card statement buying a bunch of Viagra or, boner pills or whatever, and you think, oh, that guy's probably a freaky weirdo. Or somebody who's like trying to be romantic for his wife, like doesn't that change your emotion about that, knowing their emotion? Knowing the emotion is the most important thing about your target. And the second thing here is that you want to call people up. Call them up. It's a big secret. Nobody does it. And it's how Anna, by the way, made so much money on that letter without mailing it. She would call people up and talk to them. Nobody's going to do that. I guarantee you there's not a single realtor. Don't fucking tell me there is, because there's not. I know there's not. And so you're like, well, I know a real. No, you don't. Okay, you don't. That's going out and taking letters like this and asking people for feedback. Genuinely asking, hey, how can I improve this? Then they improve the letter, and then they do it until they do iteration after iteration until it performs, until it produces. It's not that hard. This is how, if you want to, like most of these people that get into the boner stuff, like, oh, I need to make, because it's like a really hot market, let me make some money. But if you do a little bit of research, you can create a campaign that not only makes money, but produces for years, and no one's able to touch you. No one's even able to come close to you. And you're also doing, of course there's college kids, I'm sure, that are buying this stuff and just, trying to like, oh, I'm going to pound her pussy till she's in a coma. Like there's people like that, but it's few and far between. And by the way, if you actually did that, you'd probably get in trouble, or I don't know, maybe not. That'd be kind of an explanation. What happened to her? Well, what am I talking about? This is not where you let me drift. What I'm saying is that it's actually, providing someone ability, an older person, an ability to, make their wife feel attractive is actually something quite romantic and lovely. You're making the world better. Again, my whole point, it's all about that emotion. I bet you've never heard that story, that's the story behind why these guys are doing it. And that example, it's just that emotion. It happens with just making a few phone calls. So Anna making so much money from one letter. First, she calls sellers over the phone and asks them in person to evaluate it. She emails sellers, asks for their honest opinion. She asked brokers, realtors, and then she asked realtors to ask their sellers. That's all she was doing without even mailing this letter, just asking people to ask people. Find out what their emotion is. And you want to get to what some of these emotions are with people, because a lot of times they feel like they've been betrayed. They feel stupid, like they've been left behind. That's why one of the first things we say is the 95% versus the 5%. All right, how do we do deals in hot markets? One of the biggest secrets to our compliance with our copy and our writing was that we would call people up. So in Phoenix, Arizona, after the 2007 stuff, when the new home builders overbuilt, so that you could buy these $250,000, $350,000 houses, you could buy them for $80,000, $100,000. The same thing in Vegas, but they had a few more different rules. But with all that competition, how do you beat them all? This is how you do it. Go door to door, start calling people, find out. One of the best lead generation things we would do is we'd go door to door. We'd talk to somebody who was in foreclosure or had the list pendants filed, and they would go. I had people show me a trash bucket, like they'd buy a brand new trash can, waist high, chest high trash can, and would fill it with letters that they got from real estate investors. So how many of them were they going through? Almost none of them. But then I would ask them, did anyone stand out? And whatever ones you say, when you find that first, when someone says, "Well, this one did," or "That one did," or whatever, and you see that one repeated, you know that that guy is a winning person. He's actually getting through to these people. Everyone else isn't. You can take all those letters like we did and start calling all them up and build your investor list. That's one way to build your investor list for free. But nobody's ever done. I've never met anyone doing that. Going to these people and asking them, what other letters did you get? And they've got just a whole bunch of them. They're just getting a stack of letters every day. These markets are easy to find, by the way. If you want to find markets that are booming or they're about to boom, we just look at the construction builds. Average income 50 to 60 grand. Houses after corrections, you can buy $250,000 for $100,000 or less. That's what you're looking for. And if you're wanting to do that, but don't do that stuff. I'm just saying it's not hard to find hot markets and then how to beat others. Talking the letter, going door to door, something nobody's going to do. Talk to the people about the letters they get, which ones they reply to. And they've got a big bucket of junk that they get. They don't take it seriously. Now you know the best ones because the ones they reply to, and you can also build your investments like I just said. Same with magic shows. When I called and found out that they wanted to learn a trick or two, I used to do this in like junior high school. I was really into magic, and I was wondering why aren't people, I wasn't getting as much business as I wanted. And when I realized, I call people up that, if they booked with another magician or something, and the other magicians would never do it. They would never call them up and ask them why they called them. They would never do that. I did. And one of the top things I heard is that somebody they said, what I would love, what I would wish is if somebody would actually show us how to do a trick or two at the show. I started doing that. I'd say, I'm not going to do a magic show, but I actually do a little magic class, and I could double my price. Nobody else was doing it. Docs want to know why their staff wouldn't have to learn new software. This is one of the questions we have when we call them up. What's the biggest reason why you didn't switch to this or you didn't do that? We'd ask them. They would say openly, I want to make sure that my staff doesn't have to learn new software because they're going to be pissed at me. And once they're pissed at me, they make my life miserable. The $1 Million DVD Challenge. I bought $10 million worth of real estate in less than 10 hours. This is me talking. If you remember, this was years ago. It worked, but not as well as I wanted to, because when we promoted that, saying, the $1 Million Challenge, awesome male sits down and buys $10 million worth of real estate, right? This is really important because I had to have put my ego aside, and I called people up, and you know what they said? The number one thing I heard was, of course, Azam can do it. Of course you can do it, Azam. That doesn't mean I can do it. And I realized, you know what? That was not having the effect I wanted, right? So this is the moment, by the way, I stopped ever talking about how much money I make, what I'm doing, my house, because that stuff falls flat. It's not nearly as effective. And the more you see people talking about what they've done for themselves, money and stuff, the less they've done for other people. So what I do is I always brag about everyone else. That course, if you remember that, one of the guys we had was Jim Drayle. He's a Hollywood camera guy. He was one of the people involved in making that DVD, that video. It was like a documentary on me buying the $10 million. And he was like, and when he showed up, he's like, man, this is bullshit. You're scamming motherfuckers. He was like, yeah, this is fucking bullshit. He's, what kind of scam are you going to run? But as he saw me doing it, he was like, I can't believe how easy it is. And during the breaks, I would show him how he was very curious, very great student. And he started asking me questions. He started doing it himself. Before we had wrapped up filming, he had his first deal. He didn't have it done. He didn't make money, but he's like, I can't believe this is possible. He had back pain. He's got a whole story. We did a 2-hour interview with him. But what I started doing out of that DVD, as I tell the story, I bought $10 million worth of real estate, but you've already heard that, right? Of course you can do it, Oz, and that's what you're thinking, right? Which is what they were thinking. But you know what? What if I told you the cameraman is now making $15,000 a month? The cameraman on that documentary was making $15,000 a month because of the feedback, the things I showed him how to do in between our breaks, like at lunch and stuff. How cool would that be? Here's the process he went through. And that did 3 to 5 times better than me doing it by saying, hey, the cameraman, like the lowly cameraman, Jim, if you're watching, even this dumb fuck could do it. When people saw him and met him and saw how incompetent he was mentally, it was like, I love Jim. Jim Drayle is one of our old friends. But did that totally change things? Then I did a challenge, so it changed my entire approach. When I was really big, I'm like, I need to do like seminars, I need to sell this stuff. I changed how I approach this. I do challenges. I'd say I want to pick a random person to make $10,000 in 90 days. And he did it. It was a James Brickhouse, did $14,000 in 2 weeks. And 1,000. I remember his testimonial when I did that interview with him. If you remember it, he said, "I'm going to make more money. I made more money in 2 weeks than I'll make in the next 6 months." It's crazy, right? And that's the hook. That's the emotion people want to see. Like, wow, of course Azam can do it. Wait a minute. Now, that's how you get people over. I'd say we had somebody that went out and said, "You know what? I'm going to go out. We're going to buy and sell real estate, and we're not going to come back home. I'm not going to drop you off at your house until we do it. So we're going to stay in a hotel or whatever until you flip your first deal." And the guy made $3,000 that day, I think. There was another guy that we had in Indianapolis that we did that with. Then I picked an unemployment gal, Pam Otten, I think, and she did over 10 grand a month. The challenge, then I challenged an entire room, and I guaranteed everybody in the room leaves with a deal. We had 100 people and 100 deals. Every single person in the room got a deal. Here's my point. All these challenges and all this stuff that I did that as a result of calling people up, and I realized they didn't want to see me make $10 million or buy $10 million worth of houses. It's that important. And when you do this kind of stuff, it's a hook. Some people that saw this probably remember it for years later. And if I was taking that part of the business seriously, I would be harping on that stuff more. This is really easy to do when you call people up and talk to them. Find out what is the emotion. Of course you can do it, Azam. They're not seeing it. It's not just disbelief, but it's also, it brings down their self-esteem because, oh, well, he can do it, but I could never. And then you realize what you really, the real monster that you got to deal with. Get on the phone is my point. It'll really help. It'll really help with everything that you do. You want to get on the phone. So do not assume that you have the right message. Make sure you want to take the step for you to make a few calibrations. Take the step the few will take to make calibrations based on conversations. Nobody will do this, and it may put you in a category that nobody else will be there. This is how you develop campaigns that will produce for years. This also relates to something called the curse of knowledge, cognitive bias. So try this for somebody. If I tapped out, happy birthday, da, 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 da. See, that has tone, so you can tell. But if it has no tone, da, 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 da. Try this and ask yourself, how many people of your friends and family do you think would get that happy birthday? You think it's pretty high, right? Like 80%, 90%? Well, they found it's 1 in 40. We've done tests and found that it's 1 in 30, 1 in 80 sometimes. So it's more than twice as bad. People don't get it. This is what's called the curse of knowledge, or cognitive something else. That it's basically that you've got something in your head that's so obvious. So when you're doing this, it's going to be in your head so obvious. Like, how are you not getting this? Happy birthday to you. It's in your head. You're trying to say it, but people aren't getting it. They're not getting what you're laying down. This is why it's so important that you constantly calibrate. The whole point of what I would teach people, whether I did the $10 million worth of real estate or Jim did it, or Pam or any of these other people, James or Michael, it's the same thing, but they're not getting the message. It's me hitting, hey, happy birthday, wondering why they're not getting it. Call them up and find out how you can put that. What you have to say is only as good as you are at saying it. Talk to people that can improve you getting that. This is, man, I'm telling you the biggest secret to writing copy that converts. This is it. Because you can start with a really shitty letter like she did, like Anna did, but get it really better and better and better, massage it a little bit, do what nobody else is going to do, and you'll have what nobody else has. Speaking of high compliance, here's a good move for that. You can put anything in the return address. So focus on centers of influence and turn them into testimonials and use their name with permission, of course, in the return address. This is one of our huge things. So let's say you have a doctor, or you want a testimonial that's a doctor. Go out, work with a doctor, get a good testimonial. Take that doctor and have them get a letter from another well-known doctor in that area, because you can put anything in that return address. It can be a picture of that doctor. It can be the doctor's address. So one doctor gets a letter from another doctor that he knows. And the letter will get open, first of all, which is a huge part of copywriting. And it has a simple cover letter. It says, hey, Rob, here's what I'm telling you about the guys I got my computer from. Hey, Rob, you're probably wondering why me, a fellow brain surgeon, is telling you about, the guy that, redesigned my, attic or something, or helped me add an extension to our house. And here's why. I just did some real estate deals with, or you're asking me, hey, Rob, you might be wondering why I'm telling you about the guys I just did some real estate deals with, or somebody who just tripled my business in 90 days flat. Here's why. They're great, they're brilliant, whatever. So please check this letter out. That letter is going to get read, right? Just doing this alone, taking the same compliance, like let's say somebody has a letter that converts really well, or that's a really good letter. You know it's a good letter, you read it, but you're not getting a return on it. Just change the return address to the people you're sending it to. Make sure it comes from someone that they know, they recognize. There's certain letters, it's just like the from line in your email address. There's certain people that no matter what they said, you don't even read the subject line, you're going to open it, you're going to read it. Like Azam Mail, right? Anytime you get an email from me, you better be opening it. It's always brilliant stuff. This is how we take letters. This is one of the things that Anna's going to be talking about later, or maybe she already did in the video you saw. Well, that's all they're doing, just taking the same exact letter and just putting a different from address, and it's quadrupling a business. This isn't just a better headline, but with the same exact campaign from the right person, it could change the entire math of a business. What return name address would guarantee your target will open it? Think about somebody and ask yourself, What can I put on that return address from someone, or a picture or something that it guarantees it gets open? Pets are great too. Somebody sent me a picture of two eclectus and it said Iago and Zazu. Brilliant. I'm of course going to open that and read it. This is how you get virality in your campaign. So one feeds the next and one feeds more and more, and you can get a single good campaign that works for years. This is also how you can go if you're working with doctors and medical practices, for example. One client can be worth 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, $100,000 a month. So when you put a campaign like this in place and it continues to produce, you get paid for years. An entire business can succeed or fail based on a single headline. Don't ever forget that. An entire business can succeed or fail based on a single headline. In the example above, the letter being framed one way more than tripled several multi-million-dollar companies. It was, in fact, a headline. But this is even less than a headline. Just a from address can create an entire business or crush a business just by changing that from address. Because realize, if you tripled the business, that means you were settling for 1/3 of what you could have been doing if you just changed the from address. You know what I mean? Just a tiny phrase or word can do all that. You'll see more about that later. Writers are the ones changing the world, so get better with your words. The biggest questions you have, I got to hurry up, man. It's already been an hour. The biggest questions you have when it comes to copywriting. So here we asked you guys, what are the biggest questions you have? Here's what you said. What exactly is copy and when does it apply? Copy is everything from your emails, voicemail scripts, rebuttals, questions, framings, handwritten, thank you notes, objection handlers, notes to yourself, scripting with your team, chat, Skype, auto replies, email signatures. Anytime you use words that are written, documented with yourself in your head, those are the most important words you want to track, and with others. For people familiar with copy, they ask how to start. How do I kick off a great letter? How do I tell great stories that hook my people? I'm going to answer all these questions. We're going to go through all that. How do I keep, I'm going to hurry up because we're already an hour into this. We've had one class of like 4 hours and people watch the whole thing. It's like, I love you guys, but I want to make sure that we don't do that too often. How do I keep my people, my fan base tuned into me, and emotionally invested in my message and mission? What should I be reading? What lessons should I take away from other works? Can I use fiction to model after? What exactly can I borrow and how? How do I connect my messages to famous events or big news stories? Can you help tell us exactly what authors, you guys don't ever say we don't read your questions. Can you help tell us exactly what authors, books, works that you use to model after, or exactly how to gain compliance by using existing works? How can I get somebody else to write for me? Careful on this one. And remember, you still need to know what works. So even when you hire a ghostwriter or hire somebody, you want to be the ultimate judge. And in order to be a good judge, you have to know what works. How can I retell stories, but in such a way that they sound unique and original, so I get credit for coming up with them, even when I admit that it's borrowed or stolen? How do I connect my message to famous writings of the past? What is the formula for telling a great story while selling my shit at the same time? How can I apply this to my real estate business? What about other businesses and industries, and a lot more? So I'm going to give you the framework, the skeleton, the outline, and then you can apply this to anything that we went over. The emotion is the hard part. Once you have that, everything else is easy. What you'll be able to do when we're done. This is a table of contents. You'll know exactly how to write your copy and make a killer opening, and how to use great first sentences. You'll know how to tell some of the best stories ever. Yes, ever, for reals. Also, you'll learn the exact words to use to make sure you seamlessly move from the story and the emotional build, the emotion, and right to the close and compliance move. You'll know how to use famous lines, conversation starters, and all kinds of history fun facts stuff that will help you become a generally more interesting person. You'll understand how to build and create new businesses at will by using your newfound copywriting skill. This isn't hard, and you'll travel at the speed of light past all those mediocre masses and be able to skip to the front of the line and be a compliance-gaining machine. You'll also learn about books you should be reading and surround yourself with the kinds of words you need to use to start building your own business. Overall, you know more about how to write compelling, converting copy and have fun at the same time, which is beautiful and possibly the biggest secret in the world, having fun at the same time. So let's get started, but not from zero, because starting from zero sucks. Big Rio cartoon here. If I ever met the person who invented zero, you know what I'm going to say? That's not likely. It goes back 5,000 years. Thanks for nothing. Okay. All right. Starting from zero sucks. Who hasn't been through the awful experience of sitting in front of a blank page with its toothless mouth grinning at you? With its toothless mouth grinning at you. That's a good description. A windowless wall, an empty desert, an ocean of nothing, deafening silence screaming at you, telling you that you're not good enough. Do not start from zero. 9 quick and easy ways to make money with copywriting. This is what you really want to pay attention to. You can improve a current piece, just the headline or just who it's from. You can improve the way it's being used. You can use this one from the past, but with no changes, just track it better, because it may be that they just need to do it more or less. You can improve a previous piece. You can import a piece from somewhere else, an MFM, manufactured franchise model. You can import better uses, better selects, better age group, or better income. You can also have a marketing death match to find champions. Always do this. Whenever you have a winner, it's the heavyweight champion. Just constantly try to beat him. And then what you end up with is something better than what anybody's given you. You can use testimonials better. They can even be the whole piece. You'll never find a business that does this too well. I promise. Nobody uses too many testimonials. You can start from zero, the hardest and usually the worst way. Don't do that. All right, when writing advertisements, the single most important part of any ad is the headline. It's the ad for the ad. Nobody reads anything else first. They may look at a picture and possibly read the caption when their eyes will focus, but really they want to go right to the headline. So can an entire business really be started from a single headline? Here's some examples. Say real estate investor needs help. I'll teach you the business. I came up with this 10, 15 years ago, and it's still being used. It's produced. It's made millions of dollars. Empty nesters need help. I'll trade you my 5-bedroom, 4-bath house for your 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. Basically, an offer to trade. This is something we've used for a while. Nobody does this. I'll put your house on Airbnb and we'll split the profits. We have a special needs group now that's making 10 to 15 grand a month with just this one headline. If you and your clients are in love with your logo, then you can stop reading this. This is how we have kids, our special needs group, again, doing about $500 a day with that headline. If you and your clients are in love with your logo, then you can stop reading this. It's a good one. I'm doing an experiment with crowdfunding to help local businesses raise $50,000 to $100,000. This is crowdfunding I could talk about all day. This is a new thing we're doing now. It's not new, but we've been doing it for a while. We've been doing it with special needs kids more recently, but with our superheroes. But we've been doing this for a while. You go to local businesses, you find clients. This is exactly how you start. I'm doing an experiment with crowdfunding to help a local business raise 50 to 100 grand, and now you get a list of the companies that want you to help them raise that money, and you can help them raise that money through crowdfunding, help them put a crowdfunding campaign together, and you own a percentage of that business. So it's pretty cool. It's like the ad for the ad, the headline. These headlines have created companies. So it better be good. Hollywood studios have learned to spend millions on making good movie trailers and using audience reactions to measure with great accuracy how well a movie will do based on how well the movie trailer is received. Now studios are putting a quick 3-second trailer for the trailer at the very start. There's a trailer for the trailer now when you watch movies. It's all about that hook, this whole thing. You need to get people to pay attention and to keep paying attention and do something when the message is done. You have the exact same goal, same challenges as the movie trailer. This is not about just writing headlines, but also openings, right? It's a little different because it's not always clear what a good opening can be a headline, but it doesn't have to be. In the video above, Anna was talking about how she, the Valfredo headline did a lot better. That's what got us talking about how to start a letter. And she took basically the same letter. Once she put that headline up front, people read it about the 100-year-old secret from the Italian economist. Want to learn how to write? Then learn how to read. Stephen King, in his helpful book on writing, this is what he said. There are all sorts of theories on how to write the opening part. There's all sorts of theories. It's a tricky thing, but here's one thing I'm sure about. An opening line should invite the reader to begin the story. It should say, listen, come in here. You want to know about this. Stephen King had this right. He talked about how important. He'd spend years sometimes on that first opening line. It's that important. The hook. You got to get there. It's important stuff. He also went on to say, Stephen King went on to say, we've talked so much about the reader, but you can forget that the opening line is important to the writer too, to the person who's actually boots on the ground, because it's not just the reader's way in, it's the writer's way in also, and you've got to find a doorway that fits us both. The opening line doesn't just invite and compel the reader to take the journey, but it must invite and compel the writer to create it. Oh man, it's brilliant. I'm going to read that again. The opening line doesn't invite and compel the reader to take the journey, but it must invite and compel the writer to create it. Doesn't just invite and compel the reader to take the journey, but it must invite and compel the writer to create it. Oh, it's brilliant. Stephen King and why he spent so many months and years coming up with this stuff. You guys can check these links out. Go to the pages, man. None of this stuff is like BS, like filler stuff. This is all great stuff. A lot of time is taken on putting these together. It's good stuff. According to Stephen King, his best first sentence was for his book, You've Been Here Before. I'll give you a few good examples, but first you need to know the pattern. So, you've been here before. This is how he started the book, Needful Things. So, champion copy an example. I don't know what that's supposed to... Okay, so you've been here before. This is a letter that he... Okay, so here's an example of how we use that. So you've been here before. Stephen King said that's his best opening line. First of all, just the fact that I said that. If I said, you've been here before, that was Stephen King. If Stephen King was asked what was the best opening line he ever started a book with, and his answer was ... You want to read that, right? You want to hear that. Well, here it was. You've been here before. That's what he said. His best opening line was. So one of the ways we've used this, there was a racehorse called Man of War from 1919 to 1920. He raced 21 times and won 20 with one surprising and shocking loss to a horse named Upset. And since then, whenever the underdog beats the favorite, it's called an upset. Now, later I explained that's not really true. That wasn't the original origin. But this is a great way to start a letter. You've been here before. Then we get into the racehorse name, 1920. People always want to know the origins of stuff. Like, why do we say it's an upset? And this gives you an example, right? So we start the letter. We get into the story. Then we get into I'm telling you what we're going to do. And in a second, I'll tell you the formula that we use. So then we get into, as a business owner, we always appear on the outside as the underdog. So when the chips are stacked against us, it's important to remember you've been here before. You see what I'm saying? I borrowed that. We borrowed that line over. Fuck, this is good, man. You guys are so lucky. Am I not the best to you, man? Who does this? Spends hours like this going over this stuff with you. We only learn from mistakes, but they don't have to be ours. It's best to learn from somebody who has been beaten down and been there before instead of having to go to the basement yourself. One insight from them can save you decades. So instead of just saying to yourself, you've been here before, to talk yourself out of a negative situation, you can say, I've never been this high before. Then go to the MFM piece. This is where the whole thing of this is an MFM piece. Why do you have to be there before? It's better to learn from the mistakes of others. Don't limit yourself to learning only from times when you've been here before, but instead learn from people who've been there before. And this is when we talk about MFM pieces. This was a letter when we promoted that. And this is how we got, high compliance. We were like, yes, send me those ads. When we take, for example, an entire real estate business, a realtor's business, put it in a box, we say, hey, a realtor in your similar type of demographic with your in the suburbs or whatever was doing $1 million a year. Here's how they were doing that. He's been there before. You guys get what I'm saying? Okay, so how to use great sentences in your copy and 5 easy steps. Here we go. Number 1, remember from the humor class, we have a punchline, a parallel, and then you borrow the punchline. That's what we did in the humor class. We do the same kind of thing here. Number 1 is we say the sentence. You've been here before. Number 2, we give context. We say something that makes it significant. That was Stephen King's number 1 best way. When I say you've been here before is how Stephen King started Needful Things. That's who gives a shit, right? If I say Stephen King was once asked, if I say you've been here before, then I say Stephen King was once asked what was the best opening sentence he ever had, and that was it. You've been here before. The opening from 1991's Needful Things. Now I've given context. So first say the sentence, you've been here before. Give context, why it's important, why it's a big deal. Give them a story to brag about. State the lesson and transition, start the parallel, borrow the lesson. Remember the last thing I said, you've been here before. Borrow the lesson. You'll see several examples and why we do it. Ask yourself how you can apply this. We call this great sentence stealing or sentence structuring. Before you ask, no, this will not work in your area, I'm sure of it. Now, you might be wondering, awesome, all this obsession and focus on one sentence? Yes, just one sentence. It's that important. Get this right, get the emotion right, and everything else, this is the foundation. Everything else will come easy. So, in fact, if the sentence is good enough, it can be an entire story all by itself. Legend has it that Ernest Hemingway was at lunch with his friends. They put $100 down in a pile, and they made a bet. They bet Hemingway that he could not come up with a short story in less than 10 words or 6 words, whatever. The story's not true, but Hemingway took out a napkin and wrote, "For sale, baby shoes, never worn." Wow, that's some shit, right? That's like, wow, right? For sale, baby shoes, comma, never worn. Brilliant, right? And it's been said that a novel is contained in those 6 words. As the false story goes, after blowing away all his friends, he took all his money, and the story itself is good, but the story about the story is pretty good too. This story is not true, but here's why it's lasted. Hemingway did not write that. The first mention of a story like this was in May of 1910. Hemingway was 10 years old, and the Spokane Press ran an article called "The Tragedy of a Baby's Death is Revealed in Sale of Clothes." In the article, the author mentions an advertisement that ran a week earlier offering baby items that had never been used. Then about 7 years later, in a journal called The editor in charge, William Kane, wrote about the idea that a mother had lost her baby and found eventual acceptance of this tragedy in a symbolic gesture by giving away the little shoes never worn. That wasn't it. A few years later, in 1921, the Common magazine Judge ran a similar story. Judge magazine was very influential during its run from the 1880s up until the 1940s. Many of the editor's employees started or influenced the publications that are influential today. One Judge editor was Harold Ross, who went on to start the New Yorker, for example. The version of the story that Judge went with was a baby carriage being offered, and not because the baby died, but because twins had been born. So why does Hemingway get credit for the story? I documented how clear it is that Hemingway did not come up with it. But how did he come up with it? This is pretty interesting too. It's a great lesson in marketing. There was no attachment at all between Hemingway and the story during his lifetime and for decades after. It wasn't until 1991 and a book, the same year as Needful Things, ironically, but there was a book on helping writers to get published that author Peter Miller recounted the story. That story, that BS story we just told. A year later, another author, John Colombo, told the same story and even presented a supposed letter from the well-known Arthur Clarke confirming the story. Again, that wasn't true, but he saw someone else write it, then Colombo took over. This was a few years later, in the 1990s, another writer, John DeGroot, wrote a play. Basically, he put this in there, but he said it didn't actually happen. Why does this matter so much? Why am I saying all this, okay, about this one sentence, this six words? This business of very, very short stories is actually a very big deal to us. It's a big deal to a lot of people. The idea of telling an entire story while being constrained to using the minimum amount of words or sentences is a brilliant concept that we use in our teaching and training. How do we get kids who would normally be like, oh, fuck this, I don't want to do this, like with writing or anything like that? Like, how excited were you to write? And write like in high school or junior high. But when we start doing this, we say, okay, how about just 6 words? How about one sentence? This 6-word story eventually became part of and helped pioneer the genre called flash fiction. Cosmo magazine, which has also been around, by the way, since the 1880s. Cosmo magazine Started producing a collection of what they called short story, and the American short story. The Smith Magazine publication, a magazine that's used to help storytellers. They also have this is their basis for the 6-word memoirs. This whole idea of the 6 words, this has spawned an entire industry, an entire generation. The flash fiction. There's other related categories like Twitterature. Twitter tells a whole story within the limited by those characters. The mini saga and many other micro story items. Among them is our favorite, the 1-sentence horror story. Now you see, if you've gone through our stuff, you know why this is such a big deal to us. What's the scariest kind of writer? Well, maybe a ghost writer. Okay, there's our comic there. So the 1-sentence horror story. This is something we've been using with our special needs kids to help them with spelling, grammar, writing. We're also started collecting stories, and now we're raising money. So we're taking these stories, we're putting them, sharing them, basically licensing these 1-sentence horror stories out, and we're making money. So we use this in a lot of our work with students. It helps your dendrites. It helps you fire the right dendrites, get better at writing. It helps make writing cool and develop a skill that is a game. So we've taken this whole process of copywriting and gamified it by doing 1 sentence at a time and coming up with these 1-sentence horror stories. We're starting to share these results that may be monetized by YouTube, but if you get a chance to be a part of this, please do. We appreciate your support because all that money is going to building schools or projects that help more special needs kids. More of our heroes. Now we're doing 1-sentence love stories. Now we're doing 1-sentence comedies, 1-sentence mysteries. But here's an example of like a 1-sentence horror story. So you take something that you did every day. One way to do it. We have several different algorithms. Here's one. I woke up today and I brushed my teeth. So we take each word and we come up with different meanings, different syntax. What does it mean to wake up? Right? What does today mean? What does brushed mean? What does my mean? What does teeth mean? And we really break apart each of these words. And then we apply nouns, verbs, imagery, what comes to mind. And then we brainstorm variations. We come up with great results that everybody reacts to. So we asked the kids, Anna asked the kids, if you've seen her class, this morning I brushed my teeth. And we had just some quick off the top of their head answers. I spent just a few minutes on this, and this is what they came up with for a 1-sentence horror story. This morning I brushed my teeth and realized they were getting smaller every time I touched them. All right, we can explore that more. This morning I brushed my, these aren't done, but I'm just giving you an idea of what we do. This morning I brushed my teeth, but no matter how hard I try, I can't get the blood out. That's a good one. This morning I brushed my teeth. I wanted them clean before my execution. Wow. This morning I brushed my teeth. It's getting harder to hide the fangs. That's a good one. This morning I brushed my teeth. I'd been asleep for over 734 years. Or I brushed my teeth for the first time in 734 years. We can massage that a little, but the idea is that this morning I brushed my teeth. You woke up after like 700 whatever years. This morning I brushed my teeth and I had twice as many as yesterday. This morning I brushed my teeth right before I sharpened them. That's interesting. This morning I brushed my teeth and noticed 2 were missing. This morning I brushed my teeth, all 376 of them. Now, when we take apart the word like teeth, the teeth could be the teeth on a comb. They could be the teeth of a chainsaw, right? You get the idea. We'll be talking a lot more about this in the future. The 1-sentence horror story, it's something we've been doing a lot of, like the 1-sentence comedies. But like I'm saying, this idea of like small sentences and 1 sentence, putting an obsession behind it, it's very profitable. It's really cool. And it's just really cool stuff. All right, so how to get great sentences in your copy. 5 steps to the sentence stealing. Remember from the humor class, parallel punchline, borrow the punchline. You do the same thing here. We say the sentence. I just said this earlier. Give the context, state the lesson, start the transition to parallel, borrow the lesson. You'll see several examples of exactly how we do it. This is the part what we call the borrowed open. And it helps the conversation to avoid writer's block. Several ways to use this. Here are 10 ways. These are 10 ways to make sure you never have writer's block and you always open up your stories, your conversations, your banter, whatever, really well. 1 can be a joke, obviously. 2, famous quote. 3, your best, worst memory, just something superlative. Here's the biggest fish I ever caught, or here's the story of the worst airplane ride I ever had. Milestone that people immediately relate to. I remember my wedding. I remember, my son's first birth, or my oldest son's birth. Standard headline formula. If you want benefit, use without usual pain, then action. That's another way. If you want to know how to speak French without spending hours laboring over books and whatever the biggest pain those people have, get on Amazon, look up books on French. What's the biggest problem they have? Then action. Then read this letter right now. Scene or line from a famous movie. In The Matrix, Neo asks, "Why do my eyes hurt?" Morpheus, "Because you've never used them." We've used this a lot. Neo, "Why do my eyes hurt?" Morpheus, "Because you've never used them." A great start for a letter. The chorus of a famous song, "I Will Survive." Also, Steve Jobs often modeled a lot of his activity after Bob Dylan and the Beatles. A famous historical event like the Titanic leaving port. A crazy fact. So these are great ways to start any of this stuff. Try to breathe and swallow at the same time, or sneeze with your eyes open. If you fold a piece of paper 42 times, it would reach the moon. Fold it 103 times, and it would be larger than the observable universe of 93 billion light years. Talk about the power of exponential growth. This is that's a great way to get to exponential growth, how to grow your business with quantum leaps. Sharks kill about 3 people a year, while people kill over 50 million sharks a year. The deadliest animal on earth is a mosquito. They kill more humans than humans do. We are second. But the third killer bigger on the planet is the snail. They can have over 10,000 teeth. It's the small things that'll get you. Right? North Korea and Finland are separated by exactly one country. The famous JK wedding dance has raised over $70,000 for charity. Amazing to think that a way a bride decides to walk down the aisle can support her favorite charities for a decade to come and counting. So these are good lessons that you can start. It's we do things that we think are normal and natural, but it can actually shape lives for a decade to come. Now, in this case, so those are different 9 ways to open up sentences. Here's the 10th way. In this case, we're going to use a famous opening of a book, a chapter, or a song. There's 5 parts to this. Like I said, number 1, we say the sentence. Second, we give it context, explain why it's such a big deal, why and how it works so well. Third, we make the lesson or point clear. Fourth, we start the parallel and transition. 5, this is like the 3rd time I said this. Borrow the lesson and the parallel so that it ends. The parallel ends with the same lesson. The transition and lesson sum it up. You find yourself, so start getting better with these transitions, with these sentences. If you find yourself in the wrong story, just write yourself a new one. That's like one of the lessons. In the end, we all become stories. Great line, right? Don't become who hurt you. Hurt people, hurt people. That's a big one. All right, it's a big react. Baby whale asks his dad where babies come from. And after the dad explains, he says, Dad, thanks for telling me. How are these whales talking? Oh no, is this the dad says, you're welcome. Oh, that's, okay, I don't know what that has to do with, maybe it's another story about reciprocating. You're welcome. Oh my gosh, you're welcome. Oh, maybe I'm not reading that right. Or maybe I didn't read it right the first time. That's crazy. Do we have any standards here at Big Ria? All right, so here's the first line. Call me Ishmael. Okay, the whale, Moby Dick. Call me Ishmael. Okay, okay. That was crazy. All right, call me Ishmael. This is a very famous opening. In fact, this is considered by many to be the best, most famous opening of any novel ever written. It is also a way for homies to say they spot a plus-size girl. Call me Ishmael. I didn't know that. This is the opening line of the Herman Melville's famous 1851 novel, Moby Dick. The reception of Moby Dick was hardly epic. The publisher had printed 500 copies, but only sold 300 in the first several months. After 3 years, the first edition or original printing was still available. When Melville died in 1891, 40 years after writing Moby Dick, the book was out of print, and before being out of print, it had sold about 30 copies a year for over 30 years straight. So for 30 years, it only sold about 30 copies a year. In total, during Melville's life, he only sold about 3,000 copies of Moby Dick. Isn't that crazy? It was, by all accounts, a failure. It wasn't until the 1920s that scholars and critics valued or even noticed Moby Dick and turned it into an icon decades after Melville's death. Famed author Ralph Ellison, also who was named Ralph Waldo Ellison, named after Ralph Waldo Emerson, wrote his legendary novel Invisible Man after being inspired by Melville. The book won the U.S. National Book Award for Fiction in 1933. It's a big deal. Whenever I talk about these awards these books won, I'm saying that so you can use that in your copy and make it known it's a big deal. And the first sentence is modeled after Moby Dick's first sentence, I am an invisible man. Ellison wrote 2,000 pages over 40 years that a friend eventually put together in the book Juneteenth. I bring it up because Juneteenth is a celebration of freedom. It was something I didn't learn about in school. It is a big deal. It's a great story with freedom fighters. You should check that out, Juneteenth. It's an interesting story. There's a project called Call Me Ishmael at callmeishmael.com where avid readers can call and leave a voicemail about their favorite books. Thousands of readers called and over 1 million readers have viewed or listened to stories left. More recently, the story was, okay, so now you have an idea of how Call Me Ishmael is a big deal. It's if I said nothing else about it, I'd only use that first paragraph. But now, Call Me Ishmael is a big deal. It's a way that you signify, like, you're telling a terrible story. You're going to tell this awful story. And we don't even know, by the way, that his name, actually, I guess one person does refer to him as Ishmael. Ishmael is the only survivor. Do we talk about this? Okay, yeah, we'll talk about this in a second. So, so Nathaniel Philbrick, he's from this famous family. He wrote the book, The Heart of the Sea, which was about, he won the National Book Award in 2000 for it. It was about the whale ship Essex, but the story that inspired Moby Dick. Now, I've used this for years. I'm not going to read the whole thing here, but I just want to read you a part of this. Think about where you're at right now, because this is like a masterful writer. This is how you write emotion, how you really take someone to a scene. Think about where you are right now. Don't get sucked into this, okay? Stay where you are. This is when I first started getting into writing, someone had done this exercise with me, and it's really interesting. Just stay where you are. Do not get sucked in. Don't get teleported, okay? I'm about to teleport you from a master teleporter here. Don't let that happen. Here we go. This is the first page of the book, In the Heart of the Sea. And on that February morning in 1821, the lookout saw something unusual, a boat, impossibly small for the open sea, bobbing on the swells. The ship's captain, the 37-year-old Zimri Coffin, trained his spyglass on the mysterious craft with keen curiosity. He soon realized that it was a whaleboat, double-ended and about 25 feet long, but a whaleboat unlike any he had ever seen. The boat's sides had been built up by about half a foot. 2 makeshift masts had been rigged, transforming the rowing vessel into a rudimentary schooner. The sails, stiff with salt and bleached by the sun, had clearly pulled the boat along for many, many miles. Could see no one at the steering oar. He turned to the man at the Dolphin's wheel and ordered, "Hard up the helm." Under Coffin's watchful eye, the helmsman brought the ship as close as possible to the derelict craft. Even though their momentum quickly swept them past it, the brief seconds during which the ship loomed over the open boat presented a sight that would stay with the crew for the rest of their lives. First, they saw bones, human bones, littering the thwarts and floorboards, as if the whaleboat were the seagoing lair of a ferocious man-eating beast. Then they saw 2 men. They were curled up on the opposite ends of the boat, their skin covered with sores, their eyes bulging from the hollows of their skulls, their beards caked with salt and blood. They were sucking the marrow from the bones of their dead shipmates. All right, quick, where are you? You're on the boat, right? You're on that fucking boat. You go there. You teleport someone there. This is the stuff you want to use. This is how you don't need to be this good, but man, this is how you do it, right? This is how you get to that level of mastery, right? These are the kind of books, the kinds of words, the kind of writers that you want to be around. It's just good stuff. And he goes on to talk more, I'll read this last. Instead of greeting their rescuers with smiles of relief, the survivors, too delirious with thirst and hunger to speak, were disturbed, even frightened. They jealously clutched their splintered and gnawed over bones with a desperate, almost feral intensity, refusing to give them up, like 2 starving dogs found trapped in a pit. What? 2 starved? Do you see the similarities here between this, like the imagery and the imagery we used in the letter earlier? And when you write like this and you write with this kind of intensity, man, you're going to just kill everyone. Later, once the survivors had been given some food and water and finally surrendered their bones, one of them found the strength to tell the story. It was a tale made of a whaleman's worst nightmares, of being in a boat far from land with nothing left to eat or drink, and perhaps worst of all, of a whale with the vindictiveness and guile of a man. Right? What a story. Get ready for this story, right? It's great. So, Call Me Ishmael. This is one sentence that's basically created an entire industry. I told you how big of a deal it was. It actually inspired this book as well. There's many interesting things about it, and that's been obsessed and debated and discussed more than probably any other sentence in literature history. Notice he doesn't say I am or my name is. He just says call me, that we should call him that. You don't really know that's his real name. The biblical reference here is obvious to Abraham's first son who was banished to wander and die in the wilderness, not like the much more favored half-brother Isaac, right? Ishmael doesn't die when he miraculously finds a well, just as Ishmael from Moby Dick wanders the ocean. He's the only survivor. The only person in the entire book that lives is Ishmael, and it's told from his vantage point. And he talks often to say that I know that I'm going to be the only survivor. He's almost like breaking the fourth wall to say that. To say call me Ishmael means you're about to share, this is the kind of context, you're about to share a long tale of despair, tragedy, bloodshed, death, destruction. In many ways this applies to business. But there's a big hook here. We use a lot. Reality influences the stories we tell, but the stories we tell influence reality. So when Melville, this is the crazy part, the part that gives me chills. When Melville wrote out that first sentence, he had no idea it would be as obsessed over as it was. In fact, remember, the book was out of print. He barely sold. Right, he lived for 40 years and no one had bought it. 40 years afterwards, nobody bought the book. It was only 30 copies a year sold. It was a failure in his mind. And it was largely, he wasn't even relevant. Nobody was talking about it. Nobody was even mentioning the book, let alone that title. But the crazy thing is that he became Ishmael. This Ishmael that's banished to wander and basically never get anywhere and just die eventually, but to go on this crazy, harrowing story. He wanted to be a great writer. He wanted this long journey that's very, tragic, and there's all kinds of tragedy I won't get into in his life right now. But he was wandering through his life like the same way that Ishmael was wandering through the desert from the Bible or the ocean in his book. He was like, that's the crazy part. There was like, it's just a really interesting part. It's like they said, reality influences the stories we tell, but also the stories we tell influence reality. He actually became his own Ishmael. We each have a brilliant idea like this. Everybody has a Moby Dick of brilliance in them. And now it's easier than ever to maximize share that gift with the world. It's been used for computer training universities, business MFM deals, private money. This is how we tell this story, where we talk about, so we could say, call me Ishmael. We tell the story about the Moby Dick, how it was never used. But then this issue here, the hook that I've always been most interested in is this, that without knowing it, Melville was his own Ishmael. right? And this is what happens so often. We each have this piece of brilliance that's going to go buried for 40, 50 years after we die. And then, decades later it comes up. But right now we have a chance to maximize that and reduce those, those gems of lost brilliance. We've been doing this with computer training, universities, MFM deals, private money, etc. Here's the questions to ask yourself about this, about your target, your business, your industry. Because once we know that emotion about that you've got this brilliant thing that doesn't get solved, here's some questions to ask. What brilliance does your target have that's being underappreciated? Think about your target right now. What piece of brilliance or problem have they figured out that is being underappreciated? What assets do they have that are being underused? What kind of difference could a single big deal make for them, for your target? What is the equivalent of the Moby Dick that they have, and how can you help them bring that out to the world? What would skyrocket their business, life, relationships, etc. right now? What's something like that, right? Because everyone has a piece of brilliance. Everyone is basically their own Ishmael. They have, like Melville, this brilliant Moby Dick of brilliance, but it doesn't get put out there. What does your target have? Remember, 5 parts of this. Say the sentence, call me Ishmael, give it context, how it's such a big deal, make the transition. It's interesting because I talk about Melville, how he was his own Ishmael. That's the lesson, that we all have brilliance that goes. That's one lesson. You could take away several others. That's one. And then 4th, start the parallel. When I start explaining that, there's a lot of people I work with that have brilliance that gets buried. Then 5th, borrow the lesson. You don't have to be in a situation where it's a call me Ishmael. Big Ria, I like to read when I'm sunbathing. I've never seen you sunbathe. Oh no, is this it makes you well read? All right. I was born. Here's I guess that sentence didn't include. Here's the sentence here. I was born. All these are going to be first sentences of very famous books, and then how we can use them for our benefit. I was born twice. First as a baby girl on a remarkably smoggless Detroit day of January 1960. Then again as a teenage boy in an emergency room near Petoskey, Michigan, in August of 1974. This is the opening of the book Middlesex, which won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. Won a whole bunch of awards here. You can read this. It's also the Aga Khan Prize, the movie with Sophia. He wrote the book that Sophia, Francis Ford Coppola's daughter, Sophia, I think he may have done it too. The movie. So it's a big deal. We started sentence is a big deal. What's the lesson of the emotional hook? The idea of a rebirth is appealing. It makes us want to know more. We all want a rebirth of some kind, to be young again, more attractive. Think about your target. If they could shed their past sins like a snake sheds its skin, if they could relive their lives over again, what would they be most optimistic about? What mistake would they be most optimistic about avoiding? What goal would they want to have more of? This is the emotional hook, to be able to relive. If you could relive one decision in your life, what would it be? If you had 1 year to do over, what would you pick and why? What is the one decision that you made, no matter how many thousand or millions of choices or chances you ever got, you would make the same choice, right? No matter what. Or maybe you'd make a different choice. I imagine an alternate universe where this is a version of you that's living in your dream life. Imagine an alternate universe where there's a version of you living your dream life. What's the single biggest choice that he made or she made that you didn't? Powerful questions that immediately shake people out of their zombie state, right? These are good questions. So the emotional hook, the idea of a fresh start, to leave your past sins, mistakes, baggage behind. This is why we love New Year's resolutions. We love a new year, a new me, all that stuff. Everybody wants to be free of some skeleton in their closet. They imagine their life much better if they were rid of it. Think of the time travel movies and the inner thoughts that we all have if we could go back to our childhood or go back in time a decade or two. This is the emotion. We think of how much better my life could be if this oil spill didn't happen in my life. And this is a major pull. So we start with the sentence, explain that that's the first sentence of a very famous book. Why? Then start with that story of rebirth. We start that transition. That all we want to do, that's what we all want in one way or another. Wouldn't it be great to be able to redo the last few weeks, months, years, decades? How much further would you get? What if there were a way to get all the benefit? This is the transition now. What if there were a way to get all the benefit and then some of a rebirth, but in the real world? Then we get into how we can help them do businesses, buying JVs and stuff like that. So this is something we've used for buying JVs. We've said, what if you went back and were able to, double your business or grow your business or, whatever. What if you could have the benefit of going back in time and finding out the best ads that worked over the last 10 years, and you got the benefit of running those ads for 10 years? Because there's a business that did that ran that ad for the last 10 years, and you can get access to all their clients through it like a JV, right? So there's different ways we transition that hook. I could talk more about that if you want, but the main thing is that you get that you understand how this applies to you for whatever you're doing. So go over those questions that we talked about. The hook that we usually use is the rebirth one. One campaign we had, if you could go back and invest money for the last 20 years, you would love that, right? You would love that chance to have bought Microsoft or whatever when it was, pennies. You could make even more money if you put that money in another business or industry like a medical group, for example. Why does going back in time have so much appeal? Because you know what would happen. What if you could do that right now? What if you knew for sure which companies were about to go through a massive growth? I want to let you know a secret little list of mine that'll tell you exactly that. This is for stock picks, but also for businesses that you're about to buy. If this is how we raise a lot of bridge money. We say, what if you could buy Microsoft? Everyone would do that, right? What if you could find companies right now that are about to go through that massive growth? I've doubled, I've tripled, quadrupled, 10 of the last 10 companies I work with, and I'm about to do that with this company right now. And then they're able to become to finance part of it. If we buy your company or you sell or trade it for shares in another company, you can have all the benefit of going back in time and buying them 20 years ago. So imagine if you've got a company, but there's a much bigger company. This happens a lot in the medical group, the medical world, and they want to get shares in that big they want to get shares in that big company, but they have no way of doing that. Well, what if you could? What if you went back in time 20 years, instead of starting your own practice, maybe you would buy shares in that other practice? Well, if we buy your company or we trade for the shares in this other company, you can have the benefit of going back in time. Make sense? All right, here's the next one. They shoot the white girl first. No, what happens is I'm trying to hurry, but you put that up there. So I'm saying one thing and then I start reading something else. I don't know. Was that confusing? That was clear. Hope that's all clear, you guys, that the fresh start is the hook, right? So just focus on those questions earlier. If you ask your client, if you could relive one decision, what would it be? If you had to pick 1 year to relive, 1 month, 1 week, what would it be? If you could take back one sentence in your life, what would that be? These get the mind racing, all right? So they shoot the white girl first. This is how Toni Morrison opened her 1997 novel Paradise. This was Morrison's first book after winning the Nobel Peace Prize in Literature, became a selection in Oprah's book club. It's crazy that that's in the same category as Nobel Peace Prize for Literature. Oprah's book club. Oprah, badass. A Pulitzer Prize for her 1987 novel. This is more about not just this book, but also the how much of a badass she is in general. Obama gave her a Presidential Medal of Freedom, and she's won a whole bunch of other awards. She was a badass. Go read her stuff. Check it out. She started this book with "They shoot the white girl first." So, what an opening, right? Well, who got shot and who shot him? It's questions that you really want to know. How we've used this. So one way to position this is that it's about somebody getting it, someone being the first on the chopping block. And we all have a secret or not so secret insecurity that we're all disliked by those around us, and they're plotting our downfall with each waking moment. That's what they live for, the people around us, right? We all have that fear. We're all afraid that if the cards are down, it's me who's going to get the axe first. It's going to be blamed on me. The incompetence, inefficiencies, mistakes of others is going to get blamed on me. Ask yourself this about your target. What totem pole or food chain are they at the bottom of? Whether it's real or not, they think they're at the bottom of. And that bottom of that do or do not at the bottom, what totem pole that they may or may not even know about are they at the bottom of? We are all the white girl for somebody. Even if we aren't it, it's always best to assume that yourself. It's always best to make yourself more necessary to your clients and the people who call you their clients. And this is what we talk about constantly. Make yourself more necessary to your employer, to the people around you, to your clients. Focus on the emotion of being second best, the redheaded stepchild, being disposable. Nobody wants to be the white girl, yet we all fear. We all have that fear of missing out. We all want to be that. Nobody wants to be in that situation. So today there's an obvious racial tone to this. You probably want to stay away from that. Obviously, me, I don't give a fuck. That's not true. I do. This is a good line. And by the way, the author is black. This is a story about somebody getting it first. We've all felt like that. Dispensable. The secret to creating income immunity and being a better person is to never be on the list for your clients, employers, friends, where you're the one that gets the axe. Let me ask you a question. How important is it for your clients to keep paying you? Is it vital, or are you that white girl who's the first to go? This is how we've used this in our letters. Whose chances of surviving a rough patch? Are you the white girl whose chances of surviving a rough patch are about the same as a slutty girl in a horror movie? This is to explain how we help client relations, how we make them last. To get the bullet. We want to make them more and more necessary. So one of the things we used to do with the company we had, we would buy, whenever it got bought out by another company, we would have license agreements. And sometimes people wouldn't want to, this is a great point. Let's say I have a copywriting, there's a company that you're about to buy for $2 million. And part of the arrangement is that they pay us, 10 grand a month, for example. Let's say you're going to buy it for $3 million, $5 million, doesn't matter, and they pay us 10 grand a month, and you wonder, why are you paying them for it? And they say, well, they have this campaign that produces leads for us, produces business for us as part of our agreement. Now, you might turn around and say, well, I don't want to honor that agreement. You're making me the white girl, right? I'm the first one to get a chop. That's why one of the first things we do is send them a letter saying that's okay. All I want you to do is sign this saying that it's okay for us to go work with somebody else. And just so you know, here's 20 other people that'll pay us twice as much as we're getting from you. We're only working with you because of, the agreement is, you're my white girl, right? I'm ready to get rid of you, right? That's, and this is one of the ways you always want to be positioned where you're never in that category where you're going to get the X. So that's a hook we've used to promote CRM software, client retention, lead gen stuff, how to get appointments for audits. We turn into business purchasing consulting deals. This is how we've used that hook with sellers. Realtors always have pocket listings they promote more aggressively, fight for higher prices, and overall do a better job for. Here's 2 questions you should ask your realtor to see if you're on that list, if you're the white girl or not. If you're on that list, the VIP list, or if you're just a white girl about to get shot, go expired. ... This is one way you use it with sellers. We've also used this with a company. When a company of ours that we have an interest in is being bought, and there's a chance the agreements are continue to be, or that we're the white girl, it's important that you pick the right things to label as a white girl. We put this in the letter, because if you pick the wrong one, it can be catastrophic. So I just want to explain 3 things, and then ask that we either sign a new contract or be released from the loud one, or be released from the current one, so we're allowed to compete. We also use this with MFM stuff as well, propaganda package. You must make sure you're never the white girl. Here's how to position yourself to avoid ever being on that chopping block again. Never fight to be taken off the chopping block. If anybody thinks you belong there, you do. If anyone thinks you're the white girl, you definitely are the white girl. Screaming that you're not the white girl doesn't matter. All your work should be done ahead of time to avoid that categorizing for you and your targets. And know that they're always in danger of this, so focus on which chopping blocks they are on or will be on, and how you can help them avoid that. You get what I'm saying? Okay, next, 124 was spiteful. I'm moving a little bit faster here because I want to get this done, because this has been going on. But hopefully you're getting all this. And if there's a problem, again, you see the lesson there. I say that they shot the white girl first, tell the background why Toni Morrison's such a big deal. Then I start the parallel. It's interesting, right? Because I see so many people in business, blah, 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 and then I borrow the thing, don't be the white girl. I borrow the punchline. 124 was spiteful. That's it. Toni Morrison was so good that we'll study the opening of her novel Beloved, which I talked about a second ago. She also won the Pulitzer for it. She became the finalist for the National Book Award. 1998, Beloved was based on this book as well. The movie, I think that was what that's the movie, Beloved. A survey of writers and professional literary experts and critics was done by the New York Times in 2006. The results ranked Beloved as the best work of American fiction in the last 25 years. So when I say 124 was spiteful, I could say in 2006, the New York Times collection of writers and literary experts voted and found that this book, Beloved, was the best piece of American fiction in 25 years. The whole point of this stuff, I just want you guys to understand why we do all this research, all this stuff, and why we do all this, and why I'm telling you about all this research, is when I use that sentence, I don't want it to seem like there's no reason for it. Like, this is why that sentence is a big deal. Everyone wants to kind of learn why that sentence is a big deal, but now they're thinking, well, so what? Why is he telling me? This is where you've really got to have your parallel. So, who or what was 124? Why spiteful? Such a good curiosity inducer. The first paragraph introduces the possibilities and lets the reader know some detail about 124. Later, we find out that 124 is a spirit of a murdered baby who has come to haunt the mother who killed her. She's meant to symbolize the pains and suffering of slavery. The first paragraph is a solid start. I won't read this, but you can check this out. This is a good paragraph. But later in the book, the mood of 124 sets the tone of each chapter and section. To attach such personality to a number and to do it so early is a skill, a good opener. Here's how we've used this. What's the lesson or the emotional pull? There's not 124 was spiteful. The pull, spiteful, spite, anger, right? What's the emotion or the pull? Given that a writer as skilled and talented as Morrison introduces the main character by pointing towards her spite, it says a lot that what we can expect from 124 in the novel. This is exactly what we put in the letter. This is when we start our transition. This is true in general. And this is true in general about all of us. If I asked your friends to summarize you in one sentence or word, what's the first thing they're likely to say? So I'm asking your friends now. We're asking our target. Politicians often do polls where voters are asked to sum up a candidate in one word. Billions are spent to forge that one word. It is that important that we all care about what people think about us. One emotion here to work with is how angry, fed up, or frustrated your target is. What he feels like, always late to the party. We help him become less spiteful. These are the emotional hooks. So, for example, if I said 124 was spiteful, then we ask our target, what are you most spiteful about? What would your kids say about you in one word? When I ask business owners or investors to describe their attitude about their growth, they're always spiteful, right? So I start with the quote, then the significance of the work as usual. Later we learn 124 is the spirit of a murdered baby, of a baby murdered by her own mother. It's interesting, that's the transition here, that Morrison introduces 124 and the first thing she mentions is how spiteful she was. If a book was written about you, what would be the first thing people say about you? For too many it would be spiteful or something similar because they don't know the history. This is how we promote a family crest. Because they don't know their history. And we did this with a family crest, how you can buy a family crest. You know, if you know your history, you know where you came from, you know that there's no reason to be spiteful. You come from a long, lineage of, doers and shakers. Another version was with the same intro, and then we say, for most investors, business owners, sellers, owners, if they were honest, a book about them would start with Jack was spiteful. about his returns, about his lazy staff, about lost opportunities, about vacancy rates, days on the market, laziness of the realtor, showings but no offers, offers but no sales, and then we'd help them invest or sell. But we're telling I bet you're spiteful too, because basically we use the term. Basically, we use them as the spiteful ones, and then we would show how we can remove that spite. So again, remember the pattern. First the sentence, then the background, why it's such a big deal, then the lesson. 124 was spiteful, and the very first thing we learned about her and the book story to come is that 124 was indeed spiteful. It's interesting, this is when I get to my transition, because as I talk to so many frustrated medical practice owners, that's how they would sum up their attitude about the direction their business is going. They are spiteful. We often include the Cherokee story of a wise man telling his grandson that every man has two wolves in him. One is full of anger, resentment, hate, rage, laziness, lies, treachery, failures, excuses, nastiness, etc. The other is full of hope, optimism, love, compassion, gratitude, kindness, achievement, charisma, all good things, etc. The old man then says that the two wolves are in you and they're constantly fighting to the death. The boy asks, which wolf will win? The old man, the one you feed. Right? So don't be spiteful, removing the spiteful stuff. So the transition, I've noticed that with many real estate investors, they're feeding the wrong wolf and they desperately want to see the opportunities they can have so that they can start feeding the right wolf. They are spiteful and they hate it. So remember the transition words. Here's as soon as I say the quote and then I say the point, like if I say, if I was just talking, or if I, the way the exact letter would be 124 was spiteful. And then I'd say why she's such a big deal, why the letter was such a big deal. And then we get into an example here. Given that a writer is skilled and talented as Morrison introduces a character by pointing to how spite she has, pointing to her spite, it says a lot about what we can expect from 124. And then later we learn 124 is the spirit of a murdered baby. And when Morrison mentions how spiteful she is, we quickly learn that indeed is the best, that she indeed was spiteful. And then we get into the transition words. It's interesting because I realize most real estate investors are. I'm telling you that because most real estate investors, these are transition words. It's a good lesson for people trying to make money in business, make money in real estate. I've always remembered that because medical doctors or people in the world of robotics or engineering struggle with this because they feel blah, blah, blah. It's funny. I see the same thing happen with blank people. You also see the same thing happen with people who blank. I've always loved the secret lesson for X people that is blank. I've always loved the secret lesson for real estate people, and that is that you reap what you sow. That you're going to be spiteful. If you don't have a steady flow of motivated sellers, you're going to be spiteful, right? It's fascinating to think about the way this applies to me and you is blank. I've learned about how important this is to people like you who want to grow the real estate business because blank. When I first heard this, I thought it was BS. And I realized it's actually life-changing when you think about blank. So then with fourth, we start the parallel. Fifth, we borrow the punchline. I keep going over this formula so you guys get it. It's very easy to do once you get that in there. Next is a more recent example. Here's a big my drug test just came back negative. That's great. Who are you calling? My dealer. He has a lot of explaining to do. That's good. All right. Another example. Dear anyone who finds this, do not blame the drugs. Oh, see, so they do have to do with this stuff. This is how cartoonist Linda Berry started her 1999 illustrated novel Cruddy about a teenage runaway. Berry won an Eisner Award and was awarded a MacArthur Fellowship, also called the Genius Grant, and many other awards. Okay, so again, notice I'm only using lines that are famous that we can make seem like, oh, that line's a big deal. Dear anyone who finds this, do not blame the drugs. The rest of the first paragraph is better. I won't read it, but you can check it out. Brilliant stuff. What's the real lesson of emotion? Often in life, we blame the consequence and not the cause. The last thing or factor in a bad decision and not the stuff that created the situation where we all needed that push. The cost of being blameless is being powerless. If it isn't your fault, this is a quote that we use a lot, the cost of being blameless is being powerless. If it isn't your fault, then you don't need to do anything different. So when an agent blames the market economy, buyers, etc., that is an LC. Remember, it feels good to blame others for our problems, and most will the few artists take blame. Most people will do it. Few artists take blame because they want to take back their power. That's what you want to do. When you take blame, you take back your power. So as real estate investors are watching more and more competition eat away their profits and less leads that cost more money each, they're watching their businesses slowly die. And nearly all of them are blaming the market economy, the GDP. In other words, they are blaming the drugs. The very, very few smart investors know something that the rest don't. This is our transition, right? Then we go on to explain how trained correctly or in the medical field or whatever, you can start buying practices, right? Okay, 5. Oh, this is one of my favorite ones. All happy families are alike. Each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. So this is how Leo Tolstoy opens up the famous Anna Karenina, which is considered by many writers to be the best work of literature ever written. Yeah, for reals. It is more than 800 pages. It was released over the span of 4 years in the 1870s. Tolstoy is considered to be one of the greatest authors of all time after Oz and Mayo. When he didn't win a Nobel Prize, it was considered one of the biggest Nobel controversies ever. Think about that. You don't win the Nobel Prize, and unlike in my case where no one gave a shit, it's like considered one of the biggest things ever. Tolstoy also wrote the famous works War and Peace, which is also one of my favorite quotes of all time from Lex Luthor and Haji Murad. Okay, I won't make you look it up. Here's a quote from Lex Luthor. We've used this many times. Some people can read War and Peace and walk away thinking that it's a simple adventure story. Others can read the ingredients on a chewing gum wrapper and unlock the secrets of the universe. What? Brilliant. So that itself is a great opener, by the way. We use that in the humor class. I talk a lot about that. Tolstoy was brilliant. So anytime somebody that is that celebrated, it's such a big deal. This is considered one of the best books of all time. You got to use the first sentence and then mention this is considered one of the best works of all time. And people are like, oh, that's interesting. And then they wonder why you're telling them. And then you hit them with the transition. So you should study it. That opening line, it's something that I've used. I've used this again and again. And I've modeled this after many presentations and speeches. The idea that there's only one way to be happy and many ways to be unhappy is arguable, I understand. But to borrow it, I put it this way. I say there's many roads to mediocrity, but only one road to mastery, obsession. Right? That's what I've been using for a while. That's another thing what these openings do. They allow you to borrow and calibrate so you can have a similar effect. Talking about Tolstoy, by the way, and other brilliant visionaries like Oz and Mayo, for example, automatically makes you seem more intelligent. Honestly, this class right now, don't you walk away thinking that I'm a lot smarter than you did before. If you don't know me, like, right? And all I'm doing is reading shit that other people have said, right? It has that effect, though. If you open up a speech, you talk about all happy families are alike. Each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. This was from Leo Tolstoy, the famous Anna Karenina, which is considered by many writers to be the best work of literature ever written. When he didn't win a Nobel Prize, it was considered to be one of the biggest Nobel Prize controversies of all time. You get what I was like? You're like, wow, this is a somebody, and I'm quoting them, and that gives you immediately raises your profile. Okay, so here's the thing, though. This is an interesting thing. If you are unique, does that require unhappiness? That is what Tolstoy is suggesting, right? That even though we all want to be ourselves or unique, it is in that lack of conforming that we find misery, sadness, tragedy, and ultimately unhappiness. It's a very deep thing, right? A gloomy outlook for sure, and definitely not true, but it does sound good, right? That's the important part. So the way something sounds is often more important than it really is. The story itself is about love and heartbreak and finding your true soulmate. It's a really fucked up story. You should check it out. There's a bit of irony in the heartbreak, and I come away from it. I've always thought this, that the lesson is that you should focus on gratitude because the hero is not who you think if you haven't read the book. I guess that may sound more about me, though, but I've never forgotten that opening line. So what's the lesson, the emotional pull? Nearly everybody is unhappy, just not unhappy enough to do anything about it. Your target wants happiness, whatever that means to them. To get to any destination, there's many ways to get somewhere else. There's always more ways to get somewhere else than there is to get there, to the desired goal. It's best to look at things with a binary 1 or 0 approach and think there is only one way to the goal. When a business is running smoothly, you know exactly how the owner feels and how confident he is with every breath. If I told you to describe him, you could describe him perfectly. On the other side, when a business is struggling, you may not know why, but you definitely know the pit in the stomach the owner feels every night when he goes to sleep. You may not know what's going on, but you know the result. What if we could all get to that? What if we could get all the good with none of the bad? That's the emotion there. The emotion is a feeling of running carefree through a meadow as a child versus the feeling that you're scared of heights and you're about to plummet on a roller coaster, right? So here's what we put in our letters. Here's how we get that transition. It's interesting. That's a transition word. Once I say the quote, the why it's such a big deal, and then we get to the transition. It's interesting because when I ask struggling real estate investors and business owners how things are going, they always have a different path that they took that led them to financial ruin. However, when I talk to real estate folks who are killing it, they always did the same 3 things, ... That's good, right? Same thing with docs and with consulting, ownership, managing software, also with financial planners, real estate investors. You can replace struggling real estate investors replace that with any other group and focus on the difference between the happy and the unhappy, and it will help you get better at getting where you need to be. Okay? With the happy or the unhappy being the answer that you have. They had a system that brought them patients back like clockwork. They were actively buying other medical practices. They had ownership in at least 2 different businesses. They created at least one side source of income. These are the reasons why this is when somebody's great, how they got great. They did these things. Okay, 6, 1,000 injuries of Fortunato I had borne as best I could, but when ventured upon insult, I vowed revenge. How can you talk about American short stories without talking about one of the main inventors and pioneers of them, Edgar Allan Poe? That above is how he started the Cask of Amontillado, which is a pretty fucked up story. It's like he talked about a lot of weird stuff. Poe was considered one of, if not the fathers of detective stories, mystery, science fiction, psychological horror. It seems like he's the first American author to ever earn a full-time living off of writing alone. That is a cool little lesson there, right? You want to put that, I put this in emails, I put this in stuff where I said this is from Edgar Allan Poe, parentheses, the first American author to ever make a living off of writing alone. Whenever you have the first or something like that, some people remember. And it gets that's how you get the viral part of what you say. The line at the start of the story is interesting for a few reasons. One big reason is that it's never explained what insults Fortunato made against the narrator, Montresor. This is even crazier. I don't know if I'm pronouncing these right. This is even crazier when you see what he goes on to say. Basically, he says he wants to light him on fire, and it's a really crazy thing. So if you read this again, I won't read it, but you can read it on your own, the first page here. To smile in his face, and he did not perceive that my smile now was at the thought of his immolation, like sacrificing him, That term immolation is usually like sacrificial purpose, like a ritual. This guy is really fucked up. And what he ends up doing is pretty crazy. He basically buries him alive, chains him to a wall, and then, closes up the wall, bricks up the wall. Burying somebody alive, and it's crazy. And what's crazier is that we never find out why. Here's the lesson in the emotion, though. Here, we've used this many times. The lesson, the emotion. Explain the lesson here is that everybody is a snowflake. Explain the backstory and how the unknown insult led this man to be buried alive and killed in this horrible fashion. And nobody knows why, just because that one thing, the 1,000 injuries. But it was the insult that triggered him. It was the insult that triggered the Fortunato to kill Montresor. That insult that we never find out what it is. But we're all easily triggered. Your target clients, even though they may never admit it, they're little children who get worked up over a simple gesture or phrase, or even far less, and they're sent into a frenzy. Everyone is. If we can get people to murder over an insult, the opposite must also be true. What if we can get them to act in a positive way with a basic word? We make huge decisions often because of something very small. That's the lesson. When I was a busboy in Indiana, we used to have professional athletes from the Indiana Pacers, the Indianapolis Colts come through the restaurant, and I quickly learned that the best way to ensure a huge tip was to say the magic words, "I'm a big fan." I used to say that to someone that just looked like they had money. And sometimes I'd be like, well, what are you talking about? And then I'd be like, oh, I thought you were somebody else. And sometimes even just mistaking them with somebody famous or somebody like a big deal, like a coach of a basketball team or an NBA player or like a rapper or something, that alone gets you a big tip. You cannot go wrong saying I'm a big fan when you're a busboy trying to get tips. Just that little thing, and I used to get massive tips. I'd make more money than the people who work in hourly, the waitresses, because they would say, I want to make sure that busboy gets this, because I just say I'm a big fan. So it was amazing how that tiny phrase forced a big tip. Forced a big tip. Such a tiny hinge opened such a big door. I wondered how many other small hinges open big doors. Then we get into this with clients. So I tell that story about the big fan thing, and it was amazing that small hinge opened such a big door, and it got me obsessed thinking about how many other small hinges open big doors. And I get into this, general lessons on humans. We're easily manipulated, highly impressionable, and our actions or attitudes are very flexible. Just a small word, gesture, syllable can make a massive difference in your compliance. You've got to, man, if you're not listening to me right now, shoot yourself, because this is really important. Part of mastering emotion control is understanding these tiny compliance scanners. You need to know this, all right? They had people hold a warm cup of coffee versus a cold cup of coffee, and then they had them read a story. There's a Yale study. Check out the Yale study. This is one of the craziest things. They read a story and judged the character in the story. You know what? If you were given warm coffee, you thought the character was warm, generous, and kind. If you were given cold, you thought they were distant, cold, and unpleasant. Just based on the coffee you were given. People don't believe that they're that easily influenced. Healthy experiments done by Google, Google had shocking results. They found that just by covering up the M&Ms, employees ate millions of pieces less. They had like over 3 million pieces. By positioning water at eye level and soda down behind, they were 3 times more likely to drink water. By moving junk food across the counter, they were half as likely to eat it. They could have these huge differences. How do you get people to eat 3 million less calories or 3 million less pieces of candy? How do you do that? It's like, oh, I got to educate them. I got to get them to exercise. No. All you got to do is just put a cover on the lid, because that's all it takes for us, right? It's crazy. Google's experiments on keeping their employees healthy and drinking more water and less candy is easily done without educating employees or anything else like that. But I'm making tiny changes. Think of it like putting your hands in hot water and then in room temperature. That room temperature feels cold, right? Then if you put your hand in freezing water and then in room temperature, that same room temperature water feels warm. You can change what something is based on what you show them beforehand. We're easily triggered. All of us are. And retail, I remember when I worked retail, when it was like TVs or suits or shoots, I'd show the most expensive first, the craziest thing on the wall first. Sometimes we'd create something crazy just to have it, to have as a better, better comparison. After the Google experiment, I tried my own with cookies wrapped. This is something, okay, stop, hold the presses, all right? Okay, we got to stop things for a second. Hold the presses, right? Because I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, awesome, that stuff works on mere mortals and weak-minded people, but that would never work on the great awesome male, right? Well, I did this little experiment on my own. I used to go to this mall. They had these giant cookies. These were huge cookies that came with a plate and a fork. They were that big. And I'd get 5 cookies. When I read this thing about the Google thing saying that you could just cover it and you would eat less, I thought, man, let me try that on. This is how powerful this is. Even when you know what you're doing and you do it on purpose to yourself, it can still work. So I went there and you had 2 choices. You could eat it there or to go. And if it was to go, they would wrap it up in this plastic thing. So I said, I want 5 cookies because I was a fat fuck. And I still, inside I really am still in many ways. But when I would, I'd ask them for these 5 cookies, and they'd be like, sir, is this for you and your family? Because no normal human being could eat 5 cookies. It's like, these are huge cookies, But I'd get 5 cookies, and I'd eat one. I'd eat like 2 of them right there, and then I'd walk around, eat one while I was, grazing around the mall. But what I did, I said, I want you to give them to me, but I would eat at least 3 cookies. Maybe 4, but 3 cookies at least right there. I said, I want you to wrap them all up, all to go. Here's what happened. I had this stack of 5 cookies. Like, I go to sit down. I unwrap one. I ate one. And for the first time in my life, guess what I did? That was it. I didn't even unwrap the other ones, even though I knew what I was doing. It was crazy. It changed my life. We are all very, very influenced. We are easily influenced. You may think that you're not working out because of something big. It might be something simple. Just put your shoes on as soon as you get up, right? Don't try to floss all your teeth. Just floss one tooth and you'll end up flossing them all, right? It's really easy to influence ourselves when we understand how easy we are to influence. So for more on this, look in the Kuleshov. What did I say? Did I get it right? I don't know. Visual induction, basically. This is one of the first Kuleshov experiments. He was the filmmaker from Russia who understood something really powerful about how it's called visual induction, the brain's perception that one thing is related to another thing just because it's adjacent. So 2 unrelated things create an emotional connection when they are shown together. What fires together wires together when it comes to the brain and your dendrites. This explains addiction. I drink, I smoke to relax because it makes me feel good, to focus. No, you don't. Those 2 things you're doing them around the same time. You feel better because you're smoking because you have you've got the nicotine. Once you feed that, you relate that feeling to that thing, but that's not it. It's the exact opposite actually than that. But here's an example. They show us a picture of a guy's face. Then they show soup. People think he's hungry. They show a guy's face. They show a child in a coffin. They think he's sad. They show the guy's face. They show a woman here, kind of dressed, a little sultry or, dressed, in a romantic way. And they think he's lusting after her. The guy's face is the same, but we apply meaning to it. We totally change what we think of this guy. He was able to get a guy with a neutral expression to get awards. He'd show films and have this guy get awards because of what he showed in between. We're totally influenced by what we see based on what we see right around it, what's shown in the proximity. But wires together, fires together. The best propagandists and manipulators are always doing this. You can use the same powers for good. Take the hook, then the transition, and the emotion part. What you see isn't just influenced by what you see before, but it's actually determined by what you see before and after and during. Never ignore this lesson. There's all kinds of ways to use this emotional, small causes, create very, very big results. One tiny change in a headline can be 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20x. Think about that. An entire business can be supported by a single ad. I'll sell your house in 30 days flat or I'll buy it myself. Overworked real estate investor needs help. I'll teach you the business and we'll split your profits 50-50. I'll trade your houses. Question mark. This boosted the subject to mailings by 5x. If you can no longer afford the payment on your house and need a way out. So how to transition. I talked a lot about that because it's a big deal, but here's how to transition. About once we tell the story of Fortunato, we'd say the smallest change in a business can double, triple, or heck tuple 10 times. But how often are you really experimenting with that? When was the last time you even tried to double your business? I've been working with medical groups just like yours, and I've tested hundreds of tiny hinges to find the winning ones that can double or more a business overnight. And here's what I found, ... Another example. It's amazing how small changes can have such a massive impact on the results. 10 realtors can try to sell a house and fail, but when the seller comes to me and I put my magic system to work for them, and boom, they get an offer in the first 30 days, sometimes in the first 30 minutes, and it kept happening again and again. As soon as I started Soon I started even guaranteeing that I would get a cash offer in 30 days or I'd buy the darn house myself, ... Another example. Subtle changes can have the most dramatic impact in the final result. If an airplane from California to New York is off by just 6 inches, then it will end up in Florida. That's how many investors feel right now. They wanted to get to shiny New York, and now they are in the Florida swamplands. The real estate investors. This is one way that we frame this. Okay, bigria.com. The question to ask yourself, by the way, is what's a big result that your target wants that you can do with a very small change, with a very small hinge. Focus on that. Bigria.com. Why did the Romanian need to stop reading so much? How do you know he was from Romania? To give his book a rest. That's a good one. That's a good one. That might be my favorite one. Although that whale one, that was something else. Next up, the magician's underwear has just been found in a cardboard suitcase floating in a stagnant pond and outskirts. This is roadside attraction. What's the hook here? One play of the randomness of it is one way to go. The sentence itself is a great opener. We've created many headlines like this. Magician's underwear found in a cardboard suitcase floating in a stagnant pond on the outskirts of Miami. Writing on the underwear, Miami, I got that wrong. I was born in Miami. Writing on underwear contains stock market secret that Nevada housewife used to turn $500 into over $500,000 in less than 6 months, leaving experts scratching their heads in astonishment. This was one that we've used for years, that headline. And that headline actually was the same letter. We just changed the headline. That was the winning headline. Okay, 8, the story behind my cousin Julia's coma. The transition. When you first read the sentence, it feels like a scene in Titanic when Jack yells, "I'm the king of the world." Everything seems so perfect, not to us because we know the tragedy to come. As soon as we know that Julia ends up in a coma, it paints how we see everything else that we're about to learn about her story. If we start like with Titanic, we start with there's a story behind my cousin Julia's coma, then tell the story of Julia when we already know how it ends. You have the feeling of watching the Titanic when he's like, "I'm the king of the world." Everything's beautiful, but we know how it ends. It's going to be at the bottom of the ocean, either that night, no, like 2 days later. I don't know the story behind your foreclosure or why you're late on payments, but ... I want to know it. I've heard hundreds of yours, just like in the process of getting folks out of foreclosure is frankly pretty easy and not that big of a deal for me now. It's not that special. It is their story and the way their lives are improved when I can help them. That's what really motivates me. It's good. There's a story behind the big assignment fee, the emotion or the hook. Your target has a story that they want to share, but nobody wants to hear it. What background info does your target have that would better inform you about who they are and would better inform the people around them about who they are? What parts of their story would tighten your relationship with them and tighten their relationship with others? What are the best parts of the story that go underappreciated by friends, family, employees, coworkers? How does their story form their standards and decision-making processes, and who do they credit and blame for that? Why? How can you use your story, background, or info, research and development, your development info, origin story to help them develop a better perspective and gratitude regarding your positioning? Like with assignment values, or with assignment fees versus double closings. When you explain things my way, you'll never have problems with 6-7-figure assignments, and investors will joyfully pay you. Yes, they'll joyfully pay you 6 figures. So there's a story behind the assignment fee, for example. We use this letter, and we have a 14-page letter you can get for free. We give it away that explains about assignment fees and why we don't do double closing, because all that does is hide the purchase price, which you can find out anyway, and you shouldn't have a problem with anyway because we build a long-term relationship, and you should know why the assignment fees sometimes come out the way that they do. Big Ria, reading is so hot. Just thinking about the book makes me want to. Please stop. Touch my shelf. That's a good one. That's a good one. That might be, I don't know if that's my favorite. That's a good one. All right. Another example. Go ahead, Adrian said, pull the trigger. That's the first line here. This is Indigenous American writer Sherman Alexie. I'm going to hurry up so I won't read this whole thing, but I'll read the first page. Go ahead, Adrian said, pull the trigger. I held the pistol to my temple. I was sober but wished I was drunk enough to pull the trigger. Go for it, Adrian said, you chicken shit. While I still held the pistol to my temple, I used my other hand to flip Adrian off. Then I made a fist with my third hand to gather a little bit of courage or stupidity and wipe sweat from my forehead with my fourth hand. Here, Adrian said, give me the damn thing. Adrian took the pistol, put the barrel in his mouth, smiled around the metal, and pulled the trigger. What? This is pretty good, right? Then he cussed wildly, laughed, and spit out the BB. Right? So that's the spoiler there. Now the transition here. I remember reading this and being taken back by that Adrian would react to a gun in his face by asking for the trigger to be pulled. That fearlessness was inspiring during a time where everything scared me, financially at least, where I was dead broke and didn't have money for a quarter tank of gas. I was scared of even the smallest things, a flat tire, plumbing repair, my kids coughing and getting sick, etc. Even the slightest cost would break the bank. One day I looked in the mirror, and I made myself a promise. It's one day, it says here again. One day I looked in the mirror and I made myself a promise that if I ever figured out how to become financially fearless and have the nerve of Adrian to look financial death in the face and laugh, then I would go back and bring up everybody else with me. This letter is me fulfilling that promise. That's good, right? The emotion hook. Everybody wants the freedom from fear, just like Adrian. What would it take to lift your target's fears and burdens? What are they most scared of? What's the biggest fear that your target has that they would love to be rid of? What's the greatest fear that your target would love to laugh at? What is the best illustration that your target has that they've conquered that fear? That's where you want to go. That's where you want to take them. You can also go in another direction about Adrian, suicidal. That was the bottom of your target's. What was at the bottom of your target's? What was the bottom of your target's life? Like, where were they at when they were the most likely to say, just shoot me? What was the worst moment in your target's life? When were you the most suicidal? And what does that say about them now? Being financially fearless or free of your current phobias, concerns, shackles, it's like a permanent vacation. Your target wants to feel that freedom. What pain can you help them get rid of? The marvelous thing is it's painless, he said. Since we corrected the record earlier with Ernest Hemingway, here's another one about him. The marvelous thing, it's painless. This was a story of the snows of Kilimanjaro. It was made into a movie with Gregory Peck, Ava Gardner. It was Frank Sinatra, or it was his ex-wife. The movie went on to become one of the most successful movies in the 1950s. This is a big deal. This was a big deal. This guy is basically a real bitter guy. He's kind of an asshole. But what he's talking about when he says it's painless, he's talking about dying. The lesson here, dying is painless compared to regret. Wow, read that again. Dying is painless compared to regret. He was kind of an a-hole. He hates his wife. He hates women in general. Although he grows to appreciate her by the time he dies, he realizes it's too late. He's dead. This is a story of a man on his deathbed reflecting on his life. In doing so, he had so many regrets. Your target has many regrets. If you were on your deathbed and you had less than an hour to live, what would you do? What would your target do? If you had 1 day to live, what would they do? If you had 1 week left to live, how would you spend it? Not at your practice, right? That means that you're waiting to live your real life. What would you regret in the final hour be? What would you regret the most? What if it was today? How can you help that final hour be filled with more gratitude and less regret? This is what you're thinking about with your target. So the transition here, one ways we've used this. What if you could get the same income but half the hours? What if I could show you a way to sell your practice for more than it's worth and still get your full-time income while you stay at home? I may be able to help you trade your practice for ownership and shares in a much larger group that pays you monthly and quarterly dividends that match your current income. Because the marvelous thing is that it's painless. That's when we borrow the punchline. We've used this as doctors. This can easily be applied to any group as well. Anytime you ask about an hour left to live, all the BS in your life disappears. If you were going to be dead in the next 15 minutes, what would you do? What would you say? Everything becomes prioritized, right? It's really easy. So much of the stuff we focus on is BS. Mental energy is spent on nonsensical ways. It's a good framer for any conversation. If you had 1 hour left to live, 1 day left to live, 1 month left to live, what would you do? With any business owner or entrepreneur, they know the pain of regret and not taking advantage of opportunities. So they focus on minimizing that. You just want to remind them that they secretly dream of much more that they never imagined. They'd be stuck with it. If they don't do it, they'll be stuck where they are now. And it's time to get out of that daily rut. And just, you can get them out of everything and change that, around. We can all do it. We all know we can, but it's not on the top of our mind. We also mentioned the time experiments and how time actually disappears with monotony, expands with break. This record-breaking. This is crazy stuff. Okay, so I won't get too much into this. I've talked about this before, but there was a French guy, Michel, who did an experiment. He went to an island, and he sat on this island for 90 days. But what happened was the helicopter came to get him. He had nothing to do. He wanted to see how time would pass, and he documented it in his journal. And after 45 days, the helicopter showed up, and he said, "What are you doing? It's only been 45 days." They said, "No, it's been 90 days." And what was happening, with nothing to do, with just being bored out of his mind, his experience collapsed, where he had experienced 1 day, but he had lived 2 days. This happens with everyone, right? Where did the year go? Where did the month go? Where did that time go? When you're not creating milestones, when you're not doing stuff with your life, time disappears. It gets eaten up. And this is the same thing with what I was saying with the whole point. I think what you were saying. I'm trying to read what you're saying, and I'm reading this thing. But basically, we talk about the pain of regret, not living your life. What would you be if you had 1 year left to live? Would you be doing what you're doing right now? No. Well, then you're waiting to live your life. What if we could get you out of what you're doing right now? The reason you're doing it is usually because of money, and we can move forward. Now, 10. You better not tell nobody but God. This is the first line in The Color Purple, written by the famed author and activist Alice Walker. We talk about Alice Walker a lot. She's a badass. You should read her stuff. This is a 1983 Pulitzer Prize for Fiction, National Book Award. It was a musical, a film. Spielberg made this. Whoopi Goldberg, Danny Glover won the movie. It was Oprah Winfrey's, launched her career. I think it was the first thing she ever did. It got nominated for 11 Academy Awards, 4 Golden Globes. It's a whole big deal. About the line. The person speaking to the father, he's the father, and he's talking to the 14-year-old. And he just raped her, and he said, "Don't tell your mom, because she's already sick and she's going to die." There's a whole bunch of lessons from this. And the story, the father goes on to tell the girl that if she does and it'll kill her mom, the psychiatrist finds out that there's a friend in the exact same situation who was too scared to tell. But because of that situation, that child decided to get into the field of psychology. So we've used that story to for donors and for people to understand that we have to come out, we have to support people. The reason people don't say stuff is because they're scared, and they shouldn't be. Also, a lesson that we don't speak or ask for help is because we're scared. But for help like sexual abuse, domestic violence, or financial help, it's always good. It's always a good idea to ask for help when done correctly. We also have used this for donation drives of women's shelters, people who don't speak up most of the time. So we need to show a guiding light for those ones that do. In general, when it comes to terrible crimes we're ashamed or scared into silence. We all know what it's like to be scared or speaking up. How can you help your target be the hero that they want to be? These are different emotional hooks and pulls. This is like kind of a touchy subject, but we've used this a lot because it's a famous thing, and we could talk about this and we could help build heroes here. 11, one of my all-time favorites. Ships at a distance have every man's wish on board. This is one of my all-time favorite lines. Ships at a distance have every man's wish on board. This is written by Zora Neale Hurston in her novel Their Eyes Were Watching God in 1937. There's a lot to say about this. You should check this out. It's a really good book. I got to hurry up here. I'm going to just go through this quickly. We should be looking at her personal background info for a lot more. This is also made into a movie starring Halle Berry. It's not the X-Men it's the X-Men Halle Berry, not the Catwoman Halle Berry. It's good. Here's the full opening. Ships at a distance have every man's wish on board. For some, they come in with the tide. For others, they sail on forever on the horizon. Never out of sight, never landing until the watcher turns his eyes away in resignation. His dreams mocked to death by time. That is the life of men. Now, women forget all those things they don't want to remember, and remember everything they don't want to forget. The dream is the truth. Then they act and do things accordingly. Man, this is the first paragraph of that book. You got to read the book, right? She was heavily influenced, or perhaps created, the John Lennon and Yoko Ono. She heavily influenced the line, "The woman is the nigger of the world." This is one of the first interviews with Billy Idol where he's talking about it. The sentence from that book is, "The nigger is the mule of the world, as far as I can see." And she does this kind of broken English thing. I'm not meaning to be weird, but that's like how I think she meant for it to be read. Zora Neale Hurston. She was born in Alabama. Her family moved to Eatonville, Florida at the age of 3. She grew up in intense racial tensions. Eatonville was the first all-black incorporated township. Her mother died, and she was sent away for school. She dropped out of school, worked as a maid. She's just a badass. This is her story. To qualify for high school, she changed her birthday by 10 years. She went to Howard University. She started working on her PhD in anthropology at Columbia University. She wrote essays, novels, plays. Her anthropology work got accolades and awards, as did her autobiography. But nothing sold well that got much traction, ever, her entire life. Returned to Florida, she worked as a substitute teacher and again as a maid. Struggling with money, she lived in a welfare home, got sick and died in 1960, was buried in an unmarked grave in Eatonville. That's her whole story. Much like Herman Melville with Moby Dick, right? After her death, her belongings and writings were about to be burned, but a friend just happened to see it as he was walking by, and he went in. He was the first to see it. He put it out. He saved her work. That's the only reason her papers and writings exist today, because of a friend. Same thing with Shakespeare, by the way. His friends are the ones that promoted his work. Otherwise, it was nameless. During her lifetime, her work mostly went unnoticed for decades. As recent as 2001, and even in 2018, her work has been published after recently finding in the Smithsonian Archive, they found material and they've recently published her work. So there's even more brilliance to come from her. My point, there's so much brilliance to so many people, but here's a line she has. I'm just such a fan of hers. I've made phenomenal growth as a creative artist. I'm not materialistic. If I do happen to die without money, somebody will bury me, though I do not wish it to be that way. What an amazing thing. Someone so talented, someone had so much skill, but they ended up, dying in this, really unpleasant way, being broke. So how do we hear about her? Because Alice Walker, yes, the author from The Color Purple Above, she came to the rescue. In 1973, Walker tried to find Hurston's grave and bought a headstone, calling her a genius of the South. She wrote an article in The Search of Zora Neale Hurston, and she wrote about this in Miss Magazine. She's going to go try to find this woman. Then that's when she found that grave, and she put that, with the genius of the South, that she put that headstone on it. This moment was when interest in Hurston's work was revived. This is when people started to realize that this is someone we should pay attention to. It was only after this that her writings were widely circulated, published, and acclaimed. In a poem Walker wrote about Hurston's novel, I love the way Janie Crawford loved her husbands. Janie Crawford is the girl from this novel. It was Alice Walker who made sure that Hurston's work would live on. It was Alice Walker, again, the trait of a badass is they bring up other people. They are the rising tide for other ships. Now, about the actual book, it's a complex story dealing with racism, male, female roles, feminism, all kinds of stuff. Throughout the book, she has relationships. She gets the money and power that she wanted. This is what's so crazy about the story. In the end, the book is her telling her life story to Phoebe, this woman she meets, as she goes back home to this untrusting community, a community that hates her, just like in her real life when she went back to be the substitute teacher. She says, I've been to the horizon and back. You have to go there to know there. Right, so she's talking about all those people watching the ship the ships on the horizon have every man's wish on board. We're all looking and thinking that grass is greener, right? That we're all hoping and wanting, but that's not it. She did get all those things, all the wishes, the money, the power, everything. It made no difference. She's right back where she started, just as miserable, as happy as she was before, based on what she chose to be, miserable or happy. Phoebe Watson says she became 10 feet higher just from listening to Janie. And that's kind of the point of the book. That's what happens when Janie realizes she's meeting this woman thinking she's helping her, but really she realized that the woman was helping Janie, that your life really is about bringing up other people, making other people feel 10 feet higher. It's not about looking at the horizon for the next cool thing that you can get. It's not about keep putting your wishes out there. It's about living your life in a way, choosing to be a leader, choosing to be an example for others so that you can help other people build themselves up. And whatever's on the horizon is never as important as your resourcefulness for what you have right now. It's really cool stuff, man. The emotional hook, we all look at the horizon and hope that our wishes are out there, just beyond our reach. That line, never landing until the watcher turns away his eyes in resignation. Wow, that's such a powerful line. Really think about that. As long as you watch wish, you'll never get it. Your target is always hoping that he will get that one thing that will change everything. It never happens. The story of Janie is all about that. She got the wealth and power. None of it mattered. She was always herself. And until she fixed that, nothing was transformed. Nothing mattered until she transformed herself. Your target is scared that they have settled in life. Ozum's quote, the more you stay on the shores of comfort, the more you're convinced that the horizon has everything you want. This is great stuff. Transitions. Here's ways that we've used this. It's interesting to see this affect medical practices. As their profits begin to decline, they start grasping at straws, hoping that each new shiny object will save them from the train wreck. They keep looking to their boats at the distance, or the boats on the shore, the boats on the horizon. Well over the past 10 years, I've specialized in helping hopeless, shore-bound practices get the best booty from the most packed boats. I don't think I read that as well as it reads, but you can read it. The amazing thing about this is that if you talk to 100 real estate investors, you'll find over 95 are blindly focused on the horizon's ships. And the big secret for finding motivated sellers, they chase the shiny objects of Facebook ads, Google marketing, social media. They think if they just Twitter better or something like that, then they'll hit it big. Well, here's the big secret that I've never seen anybody anywhere figure out or say or teach. You can build your real estate business and get it to $30,000 a month, all with free leads. Yes, free leads. No need to spend any money on marketing for motivated sellers. If you think you need money or a marketing budget, then you are staring at the ships on the horizon without even knowing it. All you need is a phone, and that is how you'll get a phone, and that is how you know you're skilled, when all you need is a phone. So no horizons, all you need is a phone, that's it. There's enough free leads to build your business. Many more examples. Use the wishful eyes to your advantage and realize that everybody secretly wants to believe that there's a magic bullet. By focusing on that, it is not... Holy shit, I gotta get better at reading, man. By focusing on that, it is not that you can create just as much desire as folks. I got to read one of these because I'm trying to read yours and this one here. By what it actually is. By focusing on what it is not, you can create just as much desire and focusing on what it actually is. What if answering the answer doubling your business, then redoubling and working less and less to a point where your staff doesn't even know what you look like? What if the bridge to that utopia was just from a single letter? Yeah, just a letter. I said a letter. And before you laugh, you want to read what these 5 doctors said after 3 days of working with me. So sometimes we do the opposite. We give them... We use the fact that everyone's looking at the shore and that we want to be that boat that has their wish on board, right? So I have that one letter that's going to double your business. Many other great examples to do this, or many more great examples too. Do this. All right. Also, the kind of work is helpful. It gets your brain working to focus on deep, meaningful ideas of mankind. Get around these ideas. Only one of my favorites. Okay, Carter Woodson. This is one of our favorites. You can read Carter Woodson stuff. A lot of these people that I gravitate towards, the ones that we talk about, are writing about like really ugly stuff, like, survivors of wars, of famine, of slavery and stuff like that, because that's where you find the most emotion. When people it was their writing, the skill of their writing. Alexander Hamilton, if you read the book that actually inspired the play, he said this is someone who realized that if he wanted a better story, he had to write a better story for himself. Ali said the same thing. I didn't like the story. I didn't like the story that society had written for me, so I wrote myself a new story. But in Alexander Hamilton, he said that what was it? America's a place where no matter how down you are, you can overcome any shortcomings. You can overcome any shortcomings, or you can overcome any whatever. Shortcomings, I guess. This is the part I do remember with an undying or something insane work, with an inhuman work ethic. That's an inhuman work ethic. You can overcome anything with an inhuman work ethic, and that was what all of his work was about. When he was writing, then why do you write? Like, you're writing to survive. In that book where everyone wrote only a few essays, he wrote a majority of those 80 essays that were written. when people are in those situations where they're about to be killed or they could be killed for their words and their words carry that weight, that brings the best out of them. It's brilliant stuff. Carter Woodson, historian, author, journalist, black and legendary activist, author of Black History. He's the father of the Black History Month, the African American History Month. He launched the 1926 the Negro Week, the Black History Month, which eventually became Black History Month. He's a son of slaves, worked in a coal mine, eventually became the second black person ever to get a PhD from Harvard, started the Association of the Study of African American Life and History. The U.S. Post Office created a 20-cent stamp in his honor. Library of Congress held an exhibition in honor. They had a Google Doodle of him in February 2018 and much more stuff. He wrote The Miseducation of the Negro. So this is why I bring him up, because this is one of the most powerful lines I've ever read. The oppressor has always indoctrinated the weak with his interpretation. Philosophers have long conceded, however, that every man has two educations, that which is given to him and that which he gives himself. Now here's this, that's pretty cool. All right, check this out. If you can control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. When you determine what a man shall think, you do not have to concern yourself about what he will do. If you make a man feel that he is inferior, you do not have to compel him to accept an inferior status, for he will seek it himself. If you make a man think that he is justly an outcast, you do not have to order him to the back door. He will go without being told, and if there is no back door, his very nature will demand one. My goodness, man, read this 10 times. This applies to every business I've ever been involved with, every real estate investor, right? Why? What do they all say? It doesn't work in my area. They demand that back door. They will find one. Their very nature will demand one. Even if there isn't a back door, it doesn't work in my area. Oh, of course it works for you, Ozmer. That stuff, the market's too hot right now. This is exactly what happens. They accept this inferior status. This is the biggest mistake, that's why I put it last, that I see people making. It's not just with the people that Anna's working with, but through Big RIA, all investors, beginning investors, people in business, they accept this inferior status. And so, for he will seek it himself. If you make a man think he is justly an outcast, you do not have to order him to the back door. He will go without being told. And you guys, you're part of Big RIA, you're part of something special. You don't want to be like that. You want to, raise your level of expectations. I love you guys, man. And we have so many great, beautiful things. I hope this class has helped you get better at, what the fuck is going on with this thing? Or did you click it or did I? I don't know. I feel like it's about to crash. Okay, because there's this weird line there for no reason. Okay, bigria.com. We have one left. How many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb? Please, you have to stop one, but the light bulb has to want to change. That's it, man. You got to want to change. Hopefully this helped you with your copywriting. We're way past our time here. I love you guys so much. So check this out. Make sure you go to the summit bigria.com. I hope this helped. Please give us your feedback. Let us know what you think. It's always good seeing you guys. We love you so much. Thank you so much for all the support and everything. We love you guys. Take care. Thanks.